Good evening and welcome to Brookline Town Election 2021 live results here on Brookline Interactive. This is an historic broadcast, the first filmed live in the big headquarters since the pandemic began, and I'm so glad you're with us. We've got an unbelievable program tonight made possible by a phenomenal group of people here at Brookline Interactive. Before the polls close at 8 p.m., I, Tommy Vitolo, I'm going to run through each of the positions on the ballot, briefly describing the role of the position in our town government. After the polls close, we'll hear from several community leaders to get their takes on the races, the candidates, the ballot questions, and how it all fits together. Courtesy of Graham Crewinghouse, Big Field Reporter. And then, the big news. We'll have the winners of each of every one of the 87 town meeting races, the 9 town-wide races, and the 2 ballot questions, thanks to our network of contacts throughout the community and our crack data analysis team across the river in Cambridge. As those races come in, we'll check in with others over Zoom to see how they interpret the incoming results. Finally, we'll hear from the winning candidates themselves, providing each of them a platform to describe their efforts in the upcoming term. It's quite a show. You're going to love it. But before we begin the Schoolhouse Rocks portion of the program, first, some highlights from BIG and their efforts supporting our community throughout the pandemic.
2020 is the year of adaptation, for working together to make safe and local decisions as a community, for listening deeply and ensuring that all voices are included, for learning new ways to communicate. A year for protecting our democracy and voting. Not only did BIG adapt to COVID by managing our community media center remotely, but gave you the tools to make sure that all Brookline voices are heard and amplified, that local decision-making is live on multiple streaming and cable platforms, and that local government and emergency alerts are publicly accessible, timely, and transparent. We didn't stop there. In 2020, BIG services expanded like never before. We covered Brookline High School's 4-hour live drive-through graduation on our community cable channels, Juneteenth events on local porches, Black Lives Matter protests, and community dialogue, and worked with Steps to Success.
Brookline Interactive Group is an incredible community partner for Steps to Success. It is always willing to let the Brookline community at large know about our programs and how the community can support us. Another way that Brookline Interactive Group has really supported our work is directly with our students. Over the last few years, BIG has provided incredible programming by giving our students their voice. They work with our students in our Summer Connections program, teaching them digital media, and having this kind of access to the democratic media where anyone can get their voice heard is an amazing resource. I'm very thankful that Brookline Interactive Group both sees the importance of amplifying our voice as an organization, but also amplifying the voices of our students.
We've had a new program focused on seniors during COVID-19. Whether you're aging in place or seeking active living, watch BIG's daily curated content from Gentle Cheer Yoga, Brookline Peace Soap, Brookline Rotary, and age-friendly cities.
BIG provides support for older adults and all times, but right now it's especially essential. So they provide education in the medium and support in producing. It's an exceptional organization. All I hear about is what BIG is doing to help people communicate, to get news out, to get facts out, information out. Their services support the Brookline Community Agent Network, and they support all of our events and now much of the communication that occurs. I want to support BIG. I ask us all to support BIG because service in this world requires them more than ever. They are essential.
Working remotely, we secured reliable technology and partnered with the town of Brookline to train and support community leaders to live stream online over 500 live community events on issue forums and evolving public health, small business, and school reopening information.
I cannot say enough about the support that we receive from the Brookline Interactive Group, especially, as the roles and meetings in the public sphere have evolved since the onset of COVID-19. I think, one of the first people that I spoke to in the second week of March was Kathy Bisbee, and all I remember is her offering her unwavering support. I can say with 100% confidence we would not have been able to transition to remote public meetings safely without fear of Zoom bombing or, insecurity with the meetings, and being able to provide access to the public to be involved in that dialogue, especially during that kind of critical state of emergency time without big support.
Brookline Interactive Group was there for every minute of community decision-making, as always, and in expanded new ways. Our expanded work assures that Brookline's public process is 100% transparent and publicly accessible to all through our independent community cable channels, live streaming, social media, and archive community content. Unfortunately, BIG's critical coverage may not survive without your support. Even as BIG expands its public media mission, we are losing over $125,000 in 2020 from our main funding source of per-subscriber cable fees and our ability to generate income for our in-person facility use and classes. We need your support more than ever. Donate now or become a member at brooklineinteractive.org/donate. Thank you for your support.
And let's get into exactly how town government works and what's on the ballot. Brookline town government is steeped in tradition, long predating the establishment of the United States of America. It's as small d democratic as you will find, including far more residents in its decision-making than any city government in Massachusetts or any American local government outside of New England. The basis of this government is town meeting, a phrase that describes both the overall structure of the government and its legislative branch. In fact, the reason we call Brookline a town is that it uses the town meeting form of government. Throughout New England, the only difference between town and city is whether or not the community has town meeting. Don't get sucked into thinking about density or population or diversity or mass transit or any other urban notions. There are cities throughout New England that are less urban than Brookline and towns that are more populous. The first town meeting occurred on the Mayflower. The Mayflower Compact, likely drafted by William Brewster, was signed by nearly every adult male on the Mayflower, including 2 indentured servants, binding the signers into a civil body politic for the purpose of passing just and equal laws for the general good of the colony. Over time, town meeting evolved to be more inclusive, eventually open to black and female citizens of the community. Simultaneously, as the population of towns like Brookline grew, holding the actual meeting became unwieldy. In 1915, Brookline became the first town to change its government to representative town meeting, forming a legislature like we have today, one where representatives were first elected in their neighborhood and then came together to the town meeting to vote on bylaws. Today, Brookline has 16 neighborhoods called precincts, each approximately equally populous. Each precinct will elect 5 town meeting members every year for a 3-year term. 16 precincts times 5 town meeting members per term times 3-year terms equals 240 town meeting members. These elected town meeting members, plus the members of the select board, the moderator, the town clerk, and any member of the great and general court who lives in town, serve in town meeting, 248 in total. But what does town meeting do? Town meeting meets at least twice a year to do 2 things: spend money and pass laws. The $300 million plus budget is assembled by town staff and reviewed by the advisory committee before town meeting votes on it. The bylaws town meeting passes can be proposed by any registered voter in the town and represent a mix of zoning and land use bylaws, changes to the way local government itself operates, bylaws impacting the behavior, rights, and responsibilities of the people in the town, and resolutions that request but don't require an action by an entity or entities, be it the federal government, town meeting itself, or a resident or residents of the community. The town meeting position is elected on a popular precinct-level vote and is for a 3-year term. Voters choose up to 5 candidates on the ballot. The top 5 are elected. Due to vacancies, there are not 80, but 87 positions open this year. There are 67 incumbents running, and 11 precincts have competitive races. The town meeting's legislative process is managed by the moderator. The primary duty of the moderator is to preside over the town meeting, regulating the meeting and deciding all questions of order. This is a difficult and intense job, as it requires managing all aspects of the meeting in real time. The order of the meeting, the speaker and speakers list, and the votes themselves, all the while simultaneously ensuring that each town meeting member is unencumbered in performing her or his duties, and ensuring that each action taken by town meeting is consistent with state law. The moderator also appoints the Committee on Town Organization and Structure, any moderator's study committees, and the town's Finance Committee. The Finance Committee, commonly known as the Advisory Committee, provides non-binding advice to the town meeting on each and every item coming up in that meeting. The moderator position is elected on a popular townwide vote and is for a 3-year term. Incumbent moderator Sandy Gadsby declined to run again. The open seat has 2 entrants, Scott Ananian and Kate Poverman. The town clerk is responsible for a variety of legal and regulatory processes. The town clerk is the chief election officer, responsible for all documents, events, and happenings related to any and all federal, state, and local elections. The town clerk also serves as the records access officer, handling Freedom of Information Act and open meeting law requests. In addition to elections and the management of official documents and public records, the town clerk handles issuances of various licenses and permits, processing of vital statistics, and records the actions of town meeting. The town clerk is a 3-year position. Incumbent clerk Pat Ward did not run for re-election. Acting town clerk Jeff Nutting is expected to step down within the next few days. Ben Kaufman is running for the position unopposed. That's a quick rundown of the legislative side of Brookline's government. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll cover the executive side. Stay tuned.
We're open.
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 We open. Looking forward to meeting you.
The town meeting is the legislative branch of the town. The 5-person select board heads up the executive branch. The basic functions include calling town meetings, setting public policy, calling elections, licensing, setting certain fees, overseeing volunteer and appointed bodies, signing contracts, and creating basic regulations. They stay busy. The select board members manage the town administrator, who manages the day-to-day operations of the town. The select board typically meets on Tuesday evenings for many hours, weekly during fall, winter, and spring, and bi-weekly during the summer. As the public face of the town, they are often found at community-wide events. Select board members are elected on a popular townwide vote for 3-year terms. The seats held by select board members Raul Fernandez, Heather Hamilton, and John Van Scoyac are not up for election this year. The remaining 2 seats are up, and there are 5 candidates. Incumbents Bernard Green and Nancy Heller, as well as challengers Miriam Ashkenazi, Zoe Lynn, and Danelle O'Neill. Whereas the Select Board are the executive branch of the town, the school committee serve in some sense as the executive branch of the public schools of Brookline. Under state law, town meeting determines how much local revenue the schools will receive, but it is the school committee charged with deciding how each and every penny gets spent. The school committee establishes educational goals and policies for the schools in the district, consistent with the standards established by the Board of Education. The school committee serves as the employer for collective bargaining purposes, and the school committee employs the superintendent of schools. There are typically several school committee and subcommittee meetings each week. As the public face of the schools, school committee members are also often found at community-wide events. School committee members are elected on a popular town-wide vote for 3-year terms. 3 of the 9 seats are up for election this year. Running unopposed are incumbents David Perlman and Jennifer Monopoly, and Dimitri Ansalm, who was appointed to fill a vacancy earlier this year. Also on the ballot is a 1-year seat to fill the vacancy created when Sharon Abramowitz resigned. That seat is contested. Both Stephen Ehrenberg and Val Frias are vying for it. The Board of Trustees of the Public Library consists of 12 local registered voters who are elected to 3-year terms. The trustees work closely with the director of the library to provide oversight of the library budget, its services, and its policies. As the public face of the library, the trustees are often engaged in library fundraising and other library-related events. Local trustees are elected on a popular townwide vote for 3-year terms, with 4 elected each year. This year, incumbents Reggie Healy and Carol Troyan Lowy are running unopposed, as are newcomers Kristen Hung and Sasan Zelka. In addition, due to a midterm vacancy, a 5th member will be elected to a 1-year term. Matthew Shakespeare, my new favorite library trustee on name only, is running unopposed for that seat. The 5-member Housing Authority Board of Commissioners oversees the authority's overall direction. The board approves significant contract awards, budget decisions, formal submissions to state and federal funding agencies, planning and reporting documents, and major policy decisions. 4 commissioners are elected by town voters. The 5th is appointed by the governor. All serve 5-year terms. Michael Jacobs is running for re-election unopposed. There are lots of executive functions in our local government. There's one more elected position to cover, and I want to go ahead and give it a quick overview of the 2 ballot questions that Brookline is voting on today. But first, let's have a PSA and give me a chance to have a sip of water. Stay tuned, plenty more to come.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bisbee, Executive Director at Brookline Interactive Group. We're a local nonprofit organization serving the community's media and communications needs. Through these cable channels, through our online and storytelling programs, and we need your support. Are you interested in supporting BIG beyond even being a volunteer or making your own media? BIG needs board members to serve and guide the organization's next steps. Our strategic planning process, fundraising, and building community support. We're about to launch a community needs assessment project and a strategic planning program, and we need your help. Thanks so much for considering providing your expertise to Brookline Interactive Group. Contact me directly to apply and discuss the time commitment. It's only a couple hours a month, and we really appreciate considering supporting community media in your community of Brookline, Massachusetts. Thank you. Do you know a person who might be interested in an internship? Maybe it's someone who is in school, after college, or an adult who wants to be a lifelong learner. You can gain valuable hands-on experience at Brookline Interactive Group. You can learn from our fun and supportive staff, and you can be part of an active nonprofit organization with a focus on facilitating community-based dialogue, hyperlocal media, community journalism, and civic engagement. We're looking for interns to work on productions, virtual reality, social media and marketing, fundraising, grant writing, and more coverage of town and government and local events. Check out our website for more information at brooklineinteractive.org/internships.
Now, there's one elected position in town that is neither legislative nor executive. A Massachusetts constable is a sworn peace officer who serves the municipality. The duties include posting legal notice, serving judicial processes, and maintaining the peace. Although service of civil processes makes up a major portion of their duties, Massachusetts constables have broad law enforcement authority. Massachusetts constables have broad law enforcement authority under the 1913 Hartley v. Granville decision, in which the Supreme Judicial Court stated that, quote, "The general duties of a constable are to be vigilant to preserve the peace, to prevent the commission of crime, and to arrest the offenders who might be arrested without a warrant in other instances of crimes committed," end quote. In practice, Brookline constables take a low-profile approach, focusing on posting documents associated with elections and town meeting, and ensuring that parties subject to a civil suit are aware of their obligations to participate in a legal matter. A one-year constable seat is on the ballot this year due to the vacancy caused by the passing of my friend and yours, Constable Stanley Rabinovitz. May his memory be a blessing. All 5 seats will be up for election again next year. And so that covers all of the elected officials in Brookline: town meeting members, moderator, a town clerk, 5 select board members, 9 school committee members, 12 trustees of the public library, 5 members of the housing authority, 5 constables, a partridge, and a pear tree. In addition to all of those races, there will be 2 ballot questions in which the voters can weigh in, and I want to just give you a quick rundown of what those are. Aptly named Question 1 and Question 2. Question 1 relates to the town clerk. As I mentioned earlier, the town clerk is an elected position. Question 1 asks voters if they would change the position to be one appointed by the select board. A yes vote would make the position appointed. A no vote would retain the current elected status of the position. The person watching this race most closely is Ben Kaufman, who I mentioned earlier is running unopposed for town clerk. If question 1 passes, even though he will win the election, he will not necessarily be the town clerk. That will be the call of the select board. If question 1 fails, then Ben Kaufman will be the elected town clerk for the next 3 years. Question 2 seeks voter approval for the town to participate in the Community Preservation Act. A 1% surcharge on property tax bills, combined with some matching state funds, would create a dedicated funding stream to acquire and protect outdoor recreation, historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space projects. A yes vote would have Brookline adopt the CPA provisions and tax surcharge. A no vote would decline to join the CPA. So folks, that's the ballot. And don't forget, turn it over. You've still got 5 minutes left. If you're watching me and you haven't voted yet, hustle. You've got 5 minutes to get in line and get that vote in. If you have voted, congratulations. You get a sticker. I wish I had mine on, but I didn't wear my tuxedo to the ballot box today. We're going to have the results soon, but the polls aren't even closed yet. So we're not giving you any results just yet. We are going to take a break, and when we come back from that break, we're going to begin a conversation with Brookline field reporter Graham Crewinghouse. So stay tuned.
Have you ever had an idea to make a TV show or a YouTube video? If you got stuck in the process or need help developing your skills, BIG teaches a wide range of media classes from Intro to Virtual Reality to beginning and advanced Adobe Premiere and After Effects and animation. Check out our upcoming classes on brooklineinteractive.org/classes. Hi, I'm Kathy, Executive Director at Brookline Interactive Group. Did you know that BIG has free weekly after-school programs for youth ages 10 to 18 to learn how to produce content for Brookline Youth by Brookline Youth? Check out our website for more information, brooklineinteractive.org/opendoor-mediamakers.
We're open.
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 We open. Looking forward to feeding you.
Can you get the telephone? Okay. Oh, I see.
We allowed clients in to get things set up. Right now, 6 days a week, we have volunteers working starting at 8 a.m., sometimes finishing at 7 p.m., so that we can have just a few volunteers in place at any one time, making sure there's plenty of space for social distancing while they do their work. I'm Elizabeth Bowen. I'm the Executive Director of the Brookline Food Pantry. We have been operating out of St. Paul's Church in Brookline for over 15 years. Over 8 years ago, we started to have our own entity. We separated from the church, and now we have 3 different locations in Brookline. In terms of the clients, we now have everything set up outdoors. We have a check-in table where the volunteer who's helping us stands at least 8 feet from the client who's coming to get their bags of food. And also we help clients with cones to socially distance, so each client is standing 8 feet apart from the other one while they're waiting in line. What we used to have was our clients came indoors, they went shopping themselves and picked out the food items that they wanted. Right now we have 2 different systems going. At each location we pre-pack bags, 3 bags for each client to take home with them, so they never have to enter the pantry. They can walk right up to our desk, sign in, take their food and leave. The second way we're getting food out to the community is by delivering food. So we have never had a delivery service before the COVID situation started. Now we're delivering food to over 130 elderly residents, as well as people with compromised health. The best way to help us, honestly, is to give money. No matter how small your donation is, we get about 70% of our food from the Greater Boston Food Bank. When we go there, we are able to buy food at a greatly reduced rate compared to paying retail at grocery store. So for instance, if you were to go to the grocery store and buy us $20 worth of food, that's wonderful. However, if you give us $20, we can get between $80 and $100 worth of food there for the same amount of money. We do know that there are a lot of people, however, who have access to some products we are having a hard time getting. The Greater Boston Food Bank's chain is tough, just like when you go to a grocery store yourself and see that there are items that are hard to get. So every week on our Facebook page and our website, brooklinefoodpantry.org, we update the types of items that are difficult for us to get, and we do list the days and hours that people are able to drop them off if they do have access to them.
And it's 8 o'clock. The polls are closed. We've got some results. No, it's too soon. We don't have results just yet. What we do have is a connection with Graham Crewinghouse, our big field reporter. Graham, can you hear us live via satellite?
I can. Can you hear me?
A little bit, but I can lip read. I hope the viewers at home can hear you.
All right. It's
Graham,
nice to see you, Tommy.
I want to let the viewers know you went out there and you talked with folks all over town. You talked with the leaders of local political organizations who took a stand on the race. So who did you talk to?
Yeah, so I spoke with 3 different leaders of 3 different Brookline interest groups. And all of them had very different interests, right? And that, of course, meant that they had very different priorities down the ballot. They were focusing on very different races or very different questions. And that led to very different endorsements. One of them focused on one specific policy, and 2 others made endorsements more or less down the entire ballot, which was a much more lengthy process. It required questionnaires and a long debate. So it was particularly interesting to see kind of how these different priorities led to the different conclusions that all these groups made.
So you're telling me that you spoke to 3 people in Brookline and they didn't agree on everything? I feel like everybody in Brookline, we're all on the same page here, no?
Yes, that is headline news right there. Yeah. I spoke to Arlene Madison, who was the president of Brookline Green Space Alliance, and we focused on question 2 specifically. I spoke with Amanda Zimmerman, who's the founder of Brookline for Everyone, which is a very recently added interest group that focuses on housing. And I spoke with Marty Rosenthal, who's for a long time been the chair of Brookline PACs, which is a very long-standing interest group that touches on many different issues.
3 great organizations, which I will proudly claim have all accepted me to their meetings at one time or other. No, I love all 3, and they have important voices. So I can't wait to hear what they said. Why don't we go to the clip and then you and I talk a little more afterwards?
Sounds great.
What is at stake in this election specifically?
Yeah, everything and nothing. No, because we're a relatively new organization, if our elected candidates don't win, we're essentially continuing the status quo, which is a lot of what we're trying to combat. We have a number of actually really great candidates, especially townwide candidates that are interested in moving the needle, that are interested in addressing some of the problems that we have in Brookline, and doing so in a thoughtful and meaningful manner. And so if our endorsed candidates actually win, there's the potential to make real change. If they don't win, we're kind of where we are right now. So it's why I tell everyone, like, local elections is what matters. You have to show up and you have to know something about the people that you're voting for. It's not enough to say, oh, this town meeting member is great, but I disagree with them 80% of the time. Well, maybe you should vote for one of their opponents. You can have a nice, cordial relationship, I would say, with the select board. I like all of the select board candidates. They, depending on who is elected, will have very different focuses, very different policies enacted, and you have to vote based on the policies that you want to see happen.
So can you tell me what was behind the decision to endorse Miriam Ashkenazi?
Yeah, so Miriam Ashkenazi is someone who views a lot of issues in towns through a racial justice and equity lens, but also does so in a way that she gets the intersection of equity and inclusion with all these other issues that we're facing, with transportation, with housing affordability, with livability, with combating climate change, and the fact that sometimes people tend to peg people who are passionate about an issue as being single issue voters, but that's not her at all. She has a lens that she sees the world through, which is pretty much the same for just about every individual. And it's one that she brings with her to be really thoughtful about policies that she would like to see enacted.
So the other endorsement was Zoe Lynn. Can you talk me through that one?
Yeah, so Zoe Lynn comes with totally different and almost complementary strengths to Miriam. She was previously our town sustainability coordinator and basically understands the balance of having really urgent, pressing issues in town, such as racial justice, such as housing affordability, such as climate change, and wanting to be inclusive in the process. And sometimes what happens is we hold a lot of public meetings where people feel better to spout out what they're thinking about, but they're not actually involved in the process. And a lot of times public engagement is used as a way to essentially slow down changes that are being made because they want to get buy-in from everyone. So one of the things that we really liked about Zoe Lynn is she sees them not being polar opposites, that we can actually have public engagement and real public engagement, not just the same few people that show up, but actually make progress on some of these key issues. And she understands a lot about coalition building and bringing in people from different backgrounds because, like I said, I could write zoning policy for the town, but that's not going to pass. And so we need someone who actually understands where the pressure points are in town government to make them work. Because she's worked on the other side of things and as a town employee has sort of seen where our flaws are as well, and has a much better understanding of areas that the select board can actually move the needle. Mm-hmm.
So talk me through your endorsement of Scott and Annie.
Yeah, so our endorsement process for moderator was completely different than for select board because we know that the role of the moderator is very different. So our endorsement process was focused on two key roles of the moderator. One was moderating town meeting applying the rules in a manner that is equitable and inclusive of people stepping up and presenting warrant articles or just wanting to speak on a warrant article. And the other thing we evaluated on was the moderator names people to really powerful town committees. And historically, the advisory committee, our town's finance committee, has not had the most transparent process of having people added to that committee. And for a committee that has a lot of power, we should be doing more to make it very clear how people get there and to make it so that the people on the advisory committee are a lot more representative of our town. I would say something like town meeting is not really representative of our town. Something like 80% of town meeting are homeowners when 50% of the town rents. It's closer to 90% of advisory committee. The age demographics are not representative of town. The racial dynamics are not representative of town. And so one of the things that we evaluated our moderator candidates on is their approach to actually figure out a way to have more renters, more people of color, more younger residents represented in our town bodies that they nominate. Right. The way we view it is we're in it for the long haul. And so if we can at least get some of our endorsees into town meeting, into select board or town moderator, then we're a step closer than we were before the election. And we're planning the long game of, okay, were we able to engage voters that don't normally vote in May? How do we keep them engaged going forward? And those are the things that the political scientists that are involved in my organization are very interested in. So hopefully we'll have some answers on tactics that work and tactics that don't. But yeah, I am always optimistic and never that confident.
Focusing on the specific candidates,
Okay.
What about Bernard Green? Why him for PAX?
Okay, well, first of all, there are no rules on what people prioritize. Different people prioritize different things. For me, and for some people, you get at least a point for government service. And for others, it doesn't matter. In fact, for others, they'd rather have a new person than someone who's been in government. I believe that PAX values government service, and you get a point for that. So Bernard gets that. Yeah. Not just select board, he's been, in town meeting, and he's worked very hard on a lot of things. So that will be answer number one. And you can say a lot of the same answers will be for Nancy Heller. So she has that same thing going for her, for me, and some people. Bernard has worked incredibly hard, not just as chair, but on various things, including this police committee, which I've seen firsthand. I also give credit to both him and Nancy and all the incumbents right now for how they handled COVID. And COVID was, how can you overstate what COVID was?
Right.
And Brookline did incredibly well with COVID. Week by week, I would compare Brookline statistics on deaths and infections to all other places, and we were lower than every place. Newton, Dedham, of course Boston, Cambridge, this big suburbs, wealthy suburbs. It was really striking to me, and we have a lot of elderly people. We've got some nursing homes. I mean, anyway, I gave them credit for that.
I think it'd be a hard hit. Yeah.
I gave them and the town staff credit for that. Nancy's involvement in town government is really astounding. I mean, she was many years on the school committee. She's also a PAX board member. So, these are points in her favor. And she's also a very progressive person. I first knew her through the National Lawyers Guild.
So tell me about that sign. Why endorse Ehrenberg?
Well, I don't know those two candidates at all, frankly, until this campaign. And they both seem very capable, and I don't hear anything terribly different from either one of them. PAX has had a campaign since 2016 to, and frankly with some success, to reorganize the culture of the school committee. And this has been a pet peeve of mine and many others for many years, since something called education reform in the 90s, when too much power was given to the superintendents. And I have felt, and many of the board members felt, that the Brookline School Committee got too deferential to superintendents, especially under Superintendent Lupini, who was here for a long time. So in 2016, there were 3 incumbents up for re-election. All had been endorsed previously by PAX, and we endorsed nobody, saying we want change. And it's after that we joined something called an alliance for Brookline schools to get new people, and we've succeeded. We've gotten new people every year since then, 17, 18, 19, 20, and now there's a different culture. So the point is that we're working in that coalition, and the people that we have that link to that coalition did interviews with the candidates, and they recommended Ehrenberg. And I went with that recommendation.
You didn't endorse on town moderator. Why is that?
Well, the board was split. We couldn't get 60% for either, and we don't disclose the vote breakdowns, whether how much over 60%, how much under 60%. So we took a pass. And Scott is a wonderful person. A lot of us know and like him, but and his people say that he's going to promote more openness and diversity on his appointments, and more open debate at town meeting, I guess. And he's clearly been aligned with the similar people who are primarily supporting Ashkenazi, and he's voted for similar things at town meeting. And the other side of that is the Parliament people think those things were not good government, as I told you in my earlier my earlier comments about select board, like the 17% police cuts, budget cuts, the voting against the police contract with, I think, misleading factual representations. So the view of the Parliament people is she's better suited for moderator as an impartial arbiter and acting like a judge. And her background on the Zoning Board of Appeals is better background than being an advocate, which is what Scott has been.
Well, I do have questions about Precinct 3, in
Oh,
which
yeah,
you
3.
endorsed 6 for 5 spots. Can you tell me what happened there?
Yeah, that's something we occasionally do. We try not to do it, but the sentiment of the board was 60% for all 6. I think there are at least 7 running. So at least one, maybe 2 were not endorsed. And everyone knows we should not do it too often. But, we actually had no less than 3 board members in the group as well. So 3 of the 6 are PAC's board members, which, that, again, is only 1 point in their favor. I mean, it doesn't mean we automatically will endorse them, but it's a point.
How confident are you that the PAC's candidates are going to win?
Oh, boy. I never get on anything, and I do litigation for a living, so I never get on anything more than cautiously optimistic. That's the best confidence I ever have. Because what I'm most concerned about is changing the atmosphere. I do believe that the atmosphere has been degraded by the atmosphere from Washington. And I emphasize that in my chair column in this newsletter. And I think that what's happened is the town, which is a wonderful community of activists and progressives. I mean, we voted overwhelmingly for Sanders and Warren over Biden in the Democratic primary. Overwhelmingly, for the Democrats over Trump, for Biden over Trump. So it's a progressive place. It's a good town. It's not perfect. And I think that there are people who have been excessively negative about the town, and I think they've projected a terrible image to the outside world, especially for what I consider Brookline's biggest racial issue, which is lack of diversity in the housing population.
Right.
And I think it's been very harmful to the community to make exaggerated statements and reckless misrepresentations, basically, and I've detailed them not only in my chair column, but in a separate statement to the police committee that I was on. I think that it's been bad for the community, and it's created divisiveness instead of productive collaboration.
So tell me more about green space. What are the goals?
Well, Brookline Green Space Alliance is a local environmental organization whose mission is to protect and enhance our public open spaces. And Brookline, being a dense community that's surrounded by Boston on 3 sides, has real estate that's highly prized and oftentimes looked at as an opportunity for further development. We feel that the open space that we have is essential for the quality of life in Brookline. There have been a number of studies that have shown that we don't have enough open space per 1,000 population, and we've seen in terms of discussions within the community, we certainly don't have enough active playing fields for the need that has been expressed both by school teams and adult teams that want formal opportunity to play games in Brookline. So we have a need at least to protect what we have, if not to expand what we have.
So in this election, one thing that you've been organizing around and really talking about quite a bit is the Community Preservation Act.
Yes.
Can you tell me just a brief rundown of what all that act entails?
Well, it's a little bit of additional money paid locally, which will reap state money to come into Brookline in order to enhance our ability to provide open space, affordable housing, and historic resources. Those are things that are in our town budget, but this is almost extra money. And this money comes from, primarily it'll come from an assessment, 1% in this case, addition to our property tax, but it also comes from the deed filing fees that are paid in every community, but are only eligible through the CPA to those communities that have passed the CPA. And that money is then added to by the legislature so that it becomes a bigger pot of money, and then it is communities are eligible to apply. Well, they'll get the money, and in Brookline, I believe it's approximately $3 million a year, and we'll get that money to apply to at least 10% towards open space and recreation, affordable housing, and historic resources. And there's a committee that will review applications and distribute that money. The other 70% of that money will go towards, whichever projects they deem most worthy, and there have been some very exciting projects in other communities that have passed the CPA. Right. So in Brookline, we've seen this money go to other communities, and some of that money is paid by Brookline residents, and
state taxes, right?
Through state taxes and also through these deed filing fees.
Got it.
And so it will be really nice to have some of that money stay in Brookline or come back to Brookline and enhance what we can do as a community.
What's the argument against the CPA?
I don't think this time around, I'm not so sure that in Brookline we've heard many arguments against the CPA. Yeah. I think it has proven itself. I think that there was a sense in the past that this committee that's going to be formed by the selectmen, and we'll have representatives from housing and park community and preservation, that they will be determining the spending of money, and that's a function that belongs to town meeting. But I haven't heard that this year. And I think maybe the strongest argument is that we can't overburden taxpayers. There very well, maybe the need for overrides for the schools, and we've got to be conscious that we're not driving out of Brookline middle income people who can maybe pay more taxes, but it will be a real stretch for them, and and so we have to be careful. We have to be reasonable, I think, but I think that there will be enough payback from the CPA, and I think with the 1% increase this time, I think that there isn't a whole lot of opposition.
When we're talking about the average resident looking at the CPA and thinking, okay, but what do I get out of this? Well, what do they get out of it?
Well, I guess it depends on how you use Brookline, I mean, I look at some communities that have local museums, and I say, gee, I wonder what it would be like for Brookline to have a Brookline museum. Well, that's something that the CPA could help with. You know, it's important to know where you came from. It's important to know our history. It's important to learn from it and to decide where you want to go in the future. And we certainly have, you know, we have some very famous people that lived in Brookline or came from Brookline. It might be a real enhancement. It might help Brookline's economy because it might be it drive some tourism to Brookline. You know, kind of coalesce around the Kennedy birthplace or the national parks that we have in Brookline, Fairstead, the Olmsted site. You know, we could do some interesting. That's kind of the CPA is, in my view, it's an extra. It's an enhancement to do those things that people might think of, dream of, imagine, and this might give us the ability, you know, to do that.
Graham, that was amazing. Really great work by you, and thank you, of course, to Marty Rosenthal from PAX, to Amanda Zimmerman from Brookline for Everyone, and to Arlene Madison from Brookline Green Space Alliance. So now that you've heard from all three, I want to know, Graham, what you think. Who do you think's going to take the 2 select board seats? What do you think, bud?
What do I think? I don't know if I've formed an opinion though. I heard 2 great pitches on either side. I feel that every candidate will do a great job, and I think what we just saw spoke for itself. I don't feel that it's my place as a reporter to say.
Look at this guy. High school or professional? Maybe a little bit of both. Graham, thanks so much for all your efforts, and I hope you'll stay tuned and learn with the rest of us just who did win the 2 select board seat races, just who did win the open school committee seat, just who did win the moderator, and of course what happened to the ballot questions, questions 1 and question 2. And what we're going to do now, folks, it's just about 8:30. We do have some results, and let's go to the board and see what they are. So what I want to do for you, I want to start by showing you a map of Brookline so we can orient ourselves around the precincts. There's 16 precincts in Brookline. 1 is up here, 16's down here. We're going to try to get it back for you in a second. Here we go, 16's down here. And just to give you a little bit of a better sense, this line right here, this is Beacon Street. It's a dividing line on quite a few precincts. And down here, this is Route 9, also a dividing line on several precincts. And so to zoom in a little more, just to give you a little more of an orientation, Cleveland Circle, Washington Square, Coolidge Corner, and up here, St. Mary's. And that's where I actually want to start with our results. Why don't we go to Precinct 1 over at St. Mary's Commercial District and see what we've got for some results. We're going to see if we can get those results. They're coming in fast and furious. Precinct 1, of course, the town meeting race was unopposed. 5 for 5. We had incumbents Kathleen Cavell, long-term friend of mine, Neil Gordon, Carol Hillman, and Sean Lynn Jones. All incumbents, all have served several terms. And newcomer, Amy Evanson. 5 for 5. Amy, welcome to town meeting. Neil, Sean, Kathleen, Carol, great to have you back. We see Precinct 1 right up in the corner there. What else do we have? We've got Precinct 4. Again, 5 candidates, 5 seats. We're pretty confident in these winners. We've got Sarah Axelrod and Sarah Bowes, Marty Farlow and Daniel Fishman, all incumbents. And newcomer, Marissa Rock the Vote. Precinct 4, of course, is right down in Brookline Village. Gateway East, we see Route 9. It includes, really this area doesn't quite get to that. It does not get to Town Hall, but it's very close. They actually vote at Town Hall. Let's see what else we've got. We've got a couple of specials. So here in Precinct 4, we had a special. 2-year seat to fill a vacancy in Precinct 4. Jennifer Raitt, the only contender, I bet you she tops the ticket. Jennifer, congratulations and welcome to town meeting. We've got a few more specials. Let's see if we can go to Precinct 6. Precinct 6, Natalia Linos lives right across from Town Hall, right in the heart of Precinct 6. Precinct 6, of course, is where we are broadcasting from. Precinct 6 includes the high school, it includes Town Hall, it includes the police and fire station, it includes the main branch library, and it includes in town meeting Natalia Linos. Congratulations and welcome. Moving on, I think the next one is Precinct 9. Let's find out. Precinct 8, excuse me. Arden Reamer, longtime activist in Precinct 8. Precinct 8, of course, if you go up Harvard past Coolidge Corner and you look to your right, you're looking at Precinct 8. So Couples is like right over there. Arden Reamer, welcome to town meeting. I know you're going to be an outstanding town meeting member. Next is Precinct 9, who also had a special election for one seat. Here it is, Tom Martin. Congratulations, Precinct 9, across Harvard Street from Precinct 8, north of Coolidge Corner. And Tom, welcome to town meeting. Let's keep going. We've got a few more uncontested races I want to get through in town meeting. Precinct 10, Amy Takanami. Precinct 10 runs right along the length of Harvard Street, almost all of it south. Amy, congratulations. I have no doubt you're also going to do a great job in our town meeting. Next precinct up with a special election. Excuse me, not a special, a 5 for 5. Precinct 14, 5 incumbents, 0 challengers, 5 winners. Welcome back to town meeting, Cliff Brown, Sherry Mattel, Ken Goldstein, Pam Lodish, and Sasan Zelka. Some real heavy hitters here. Up next, we've got Precinct 15, which also was a 5 for 5. 5 incumbents again, right? So we've got Eileen Berger, Janice Kahn, Ira Krepchen, Barbara Gutman, and Lisa Cunningham. All incumbents, all representing this area that includes the country club. Lots of beautiful space. We're glad to have you back in town meeting. Finally, for uncontested precinct level, we've got Precinct 16. Again, 5 for 5. We had 3 incumbents, Regina Frawley, Elisa Jonas, and Scott Gladstone. And we have two newcomers who are new to be elected in town meeting, Danielle De Silva, Rachel Rubin. Precinct 16, of course, includes the Putteram Library and has lovely views, I hear, of West Roxbury. Great part of town. That's it for the uncontested precinct level results. We've also got some uncontested town-wide results, so why don't we go ahead and run through those as well. So we're going to tee that up, and in a few minutes, we hope we're going to get some of the results from the contested elections building up to the town-wide races that are contested. But we're going to build, we're going to get there, and we're going to start with the precinct level, and now we're going to go to the town-wide level uncontested races. So that should start, I think, with school committee, maybe library trustee. Let's see what we get on the board. And here we go. We're going to start with town clerk. Winning every precinct in town, Ben Kaufman, the only candidate for town clerk. He's a shoo-in. But remember, this is a funny one. Because question 1 asks the voters, should the select board appoint the town clerk, or should the voters retain the right to choose the town clerk? If question 1 passes, then only the select board can tell us if Ben Kaufman will be our next town clerk. If question 1 fails, this guy has got a 3-year term. Ben Kaufman, you're halfway there. Let's see what happens. The next town-wide race we want to go over, again, these are uncontested town-wide races, are the library trustees. I don't know how we didn't get Sasan Zelka's photo here. We had it earlier. He's precinct 14. Reggie Healy, Carol, Troy, and Lowy, Sasan Zelka, Kristen Hung. Reggie and Carol, longtime incumbents, unbelievable advocates for the library. Sasan and Kristen, new to library trustees. I have great confidence in them as well. We also, of course, had the special for library trustees to fill a vacancy. And again, having never met Matthew, he's my favorite library trustee on name alone. Matthew Shakespeare, library trustee. Doesn't get better than that. Moving on from library trustees, I think we've got school committee. That's right. These are, again, the uncontested races. We had Jennifer Monopoly and David Perlman, incumbents, who won re-election. Now, Dimitri Anselm, a current school committee member, but not an incumbent, because he had never been elected, He was appointed to fill a vacancy. He doesn't count as an incumbent. Still number one in our hearts. Dimitri, glad you're back on the school committee as well. Of course, there's a one-year seat, but that is contested. You're going to have to wait a few minutes to get those results. But we've got some more uncontested results. Let's go to Housing Authority. Michael Jacobs, that's a 5-year seat. He ran uncontested. He's got it locked up. Congratulations, Michael. Keep working to make our housing better across the community for everyone who lives here. And maybe we'll get some new housing for folks who are trying to move in. Thank you, Michael, for all of your work. We've got one more, Sam Botsford. Sam ran for constable. We had one seat. Again, that was the vacancy caused by the passing of, as I said, my friend and yours, Stanley Rabinovitz. May his memory be a blessing. Sam, you've got big shoes to fill. I have no doubt that you'll be able to do it. Those are the uncontested races. Now we're going to find out if our data analysis team over in Cambridge has been able to get some results of some other precincts. So we're going to check in with them. If they've got results, what we'll do is we're only going to get results one precinct at a time. So I can't yet call the select board race, the school committee 1-year seat race. I won't be able to call the moderator's race or ballot questions 1 or questions 2. But hopefully we'll get a few more precincts in and see how we're doing. We're going to start with Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is on the south side of Route 9, split by Cypress Street. It's got neighborhoods The Point, formerly known as Whiskey Point, and Pill Hill. Great neighborhood. 6 candidates, 5 seats. So there's a race. We've got incumbents Rob Daves, Faith Michaels, Phyllis O'Leary, Bill Relt, Claire Stamfer, and newcomer Anthony Flint. Now look, I want to be clear. You at home and I in the studio are going to learn who wins at the exact same time. That time is now. Let's see. Survey says, congratulations, Anthony Flint. It's hard to come in as a challenger and pick up a seat. Very hard against 5 incumbents. Anthony, that's a great job. I want to congratulate Rob Daves, Faith Michaels, Phyllis O'Leary, Bill Relt. Claire, I know you're not going anywhere. I know you're going to keep focused on the town and keep pitching in. And I have no doubt that you're going to continue to contribute. Congratulations to those 5 in Precinct 5. Do we have any other results? Let's go to Precinct 13. Precinct 13, again, is a 6 for 5. 13 is kind of a string bean precinct. It's long. It runs from Washington Square all the way down through Cleveland Circle and then down to Chestnut Hill. It's kind of a tale of 2 portions. The portion along Beacon Street, much more urban. The portion past it in Chestnut Hill, much more suburban. Politically, it's a balanced precinct. There are some strong progressives. There are some more conservative members. It's actually, it's a mix. It's a mixed bag. It keeps it exciting. And this year, we had 5 incumbents, Carla Benka, John Doggett, Paul Sainer, Ada Tadmore, and Chris Chanyasalkit. And we had newcomer Arezo Sanoff. And again, like with all of these, we're going to find out at the same time. There are going to be 5 winners. Let's see if we can find out which 5 had the votes. In this case, it was the 5 incumbents. Like I said, breaking in as a newcomer, as a challenger, very difficult. Those 5 who won, Carla Benka, John Doggett, Paul Sainer, Ada Tadmore, Chris Chanyasalkit, congratulations. Of course, they had the advantage of name recognition. They've been doing work in the precinct for the past few years, in some cases, several decades. So it's not a big surprise. This is a common outcome. Arezu, thank you for running. I hope that you will stay involved however you can. Let's see what else we've got. Do we have any more results? We don't have any more results yet, so this is it. We're waiting for the results. We're hoping they get into headquarters. Headquarters is going to bring them here. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a little break from results, get a few more in, and I'm going to come over here back to the desk, and let's see if we can get someone on Zoom. I'm hoping maybe we can talk to Select Board member Heather Hamilton. Is Heather Hamilton available? We'll see if we can get her in. And Heather, how are you doing this evening? Thanks for joining us on Brookline Interactive.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, you ran an excellent race last year, so you're a bit of a pro. You know how to thread the needle. Any surprises so far? Anything that you didn't expect?
I'm sure there will be lots of surprises. There have been lots of things that I didn't expect. I didn't expect that we would still be mostly video this time, a year. I remember troubleshooting it during my campaign, but I have to be honest, I'm so relieved that I'm not running this year. Last year was challenging, but this year the competition was tough and the expectations were even tougher.
I think that's right. And, you ran a year ago. You also ran 4 years ago. So you know what it's like to run townwide, when you can knock on doors, when people are meeting in public. And you also know what it's like when all of that's off the table. Can you walk us through some of the challenges that the townwide candidates faced this year that folks who haven't had to run in COVID maybe don't fully appreciate?
Sure. 4 years ago when I ran the first time, it was your old school campaign. You have palm cards that you have printed at a union print shop, and you get people to hold signs for you, and you leaflet, and you knock on doors, and you have direct conversations with folks. When people don't really want to interact with strangers, your options are really limited. And in a local race, select board used to be maybe a $2,000, at most $5,000 race, because you do one mailer to all of the people who frequently vote, and you have some materials. And now that we are expected to have a website, that's a good $1,500. Now everything, you have to pay for every interaction. Texting, I utilized last year for the first time, and it's only like 1 cent per text. Some people hate it. It feels like an invasion of privacy, but your options are really limited. I mean, this is not a congressional race. You're not advertising on radio and TV. You get a little coverage in the local news, but not much. So every interaction is now costing your campaign, and everybody feels tapped out. So trying to get donations is very difficult.
Yeah, that's right. I can really appreciate that. Remember, we just had a presidential election. We had Congress, the Senate, and folks in Brookline were really plugged into that. What I want to ask you about is house parties. So traditionally, candidates would go to house parties where a host will invite over some friends and neighbors, get some Trader Joe's snacks, the little cheese cubes and the little tomatoes, which I thought I had had enough of, but now I miss terribly. Now it's all on Zoom. And I know you did some of it last year. Are parts of it better? Are parts of it worse? Compare and contrast. Let us know what it's like to try to do this on Zoom rather than the old-fashioned way.
I would say the downside is people are kind of flaky when it comes to virtual house parties. I remember a friend of mine wanted to throw a house party virtually for me last year, and literally like 2 people showed up. But the upside is I didn't have to travel very far. Once we realized that only 2 people were coming, we could end it early and I could go back to doing other things. Another advantage is I didn't gain any weight. I mean, people talk about the chicken dinners that you're expected, and those cheese cubes add up, my friend. Okay. Each one of those cubes is like 50 calories. And when pizza is available or cheese cubes, I eat, because you're always on the go and you're just always really, really hungry. So I'm a snacker, and if it's out, I will eat it, especially if it's chocolate.
Yeah, no, I remember that as well for me, and you had to pack it in like a squirrel and just. So we talked about house parties. We talked about, as far as I know, no one knocked on doors. I mean, it feels too soon, right?
Yeah, people played around with it in the lead up to the September primary and the November general. Brookline still has the mask ban in place. When I have friends or relatives come in from outside of Brookline, they remark to me how many people use their masks everywhere in Brookline. And it's just not necessarily the same outside of Brookline. So in Brookline, like, people still don't feel comfortable interacting with complete strangers. So I get it. Now's not the time to knock on someone's door.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, right, as you understand, if you're a candidate and you're trying to get your message out, you can't drum up supporters to go knock on doors, right? That doesn't work. Folks aren't hanging out in groups where you can get some buzz going. We're not having in-person house parties. So that limits you to mailers, which cost money, phone banking, but good luck getting folks to answer their phones. Oh, everyone's so tired of that. You mentioned the text messaging, which maybe is effective. We kind of don't know. It's a new idea, but all of that costs money. And so the question is, how do you run a campaign that costs more money when folks are tapped out? And let's face it, there were a variety of competitive races. There were different folks essentially competing for the same contributions. It's really tough, right?
Well, the forums, I'm sure, helped a little bit because you have everybody in the same place. And so as a viewer, you can, get a lot of information, and it's easier to really do a side-by-side comparison. But as a candidate, I think I participated in something like 12 forums last year. And 4 years ago, it was basically the Senior Center and the League of Women Voters. And that was pretty much it. And I applaud that through this use of technology, we're more accessible. But I also really want us to be realistic in our expectations of volunteer electeds. I have a full-time job. And so expecting someone to participate in 12 to 15 forums that go on for over an hour, I think we're going to alienate a certain subgroup of people who don't have the luxury of that kind of time.
No, I think that's right. The other thing that worries me about the forums, I think there's real opportunity with the forums, right? When an organization or a group has a particular interest in that race, to bring attention to that interest and get some questions focused, that makes a lot of sense. I worry that some of the forums were just kind of general forums where maybe the same questions are asked forum after forum after forum, and maybe that's not as effective a use of time being the most limited resource that candidates have. So I hope we find a balance. I think more than two is probably good. Right? The League of Women Voters, they're a general forum. The Senior Center obviously is a focused issue, not exclusively around issues for older adults, but certainly focused there. And I know there were some of the forums that were more targeted, but hopefully the more general forums, maybe next year when folks are out and about again, the candidates will say, I'm sorry, my time is better spent knocking on doors or talking directly to voters one-on-one. So we'll see. We're evolving, we're all learning. You might say though that all these forums are good practice for being on the select board or the school committee, where you spend 15 hours a week on Zoom.
It certainly feels like a lot lately. And I do hope that some of the groups start to collaborate with one another. There are a number of groups that have a lot of things in common, and so maybe they can co-sponsor, like the TMMA does with a few other organizations.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, I think as we get back to being in person over the next year, things are going to shift back in some places and not in others. Select board's taken a lot of time, and I think that the issues are getting tougher. How do you feel about the way, this is a bit loaded, so, push back, feel free. Is public participation in Zoom have the same sort of tenor and feeling of productiveness as public participation in person, or are there real differences in behavior?
Boy, that's actually a really interesting question that I have not been asked. I would say it doesn't have the same feel. I personally take it with the same gravity as if we were in person and somebody was standing up at the podium. I would say it's allowed more people to participate, especially in the public comment space. It feels a lot more organized, and it feels a lot more respectful, even when it's not necessarily respectful, because we now have Devin, who preps everyone and sets a timer and holds people accountable. At least she does a very good job trying to. And just that subtle nudge, I think, has set a different tone from public comment that I've seen on the board prior to having her.
I want to talk a little bit more about perhaps at our equal peril, the select board candidates. Now, I know you stayed neutral in the race. You didn't endorse. You've got to work with whoever wins. What do you think select board feels like if the incumbents win? If Bernard Green and Nancy Heller wins, what kind of signal does that send to the town? And what is the select board going to feel like? Any different or steady course?
That's a two-parter. I'm not sure which one to take first. What kind of signal does that send to the town? I don't know whether or not I really want to touch that one. In local races, it's not uncommon for people to have a base. Let's take Nancy Heller, for example. She's lived in this town for 40 plus years. Her husband was a very prominent doctor. She was chair of the school committee. She's made a lot of contacts throughout the years. She's also very good on environmental issues, which is a core value of many people who show up to vote in local elections. So I try not to read too far into it, other than when you are a candidate, you are asking everyone that you know, and usually those people do not live in the district that you're running, for money. And so the people who vote for you, a lot of them know you directly. Some don't, but the more local races, there's a direct connection there than somebody, for instance, running for Congress, where all you need is a letter next to your name and people will vote for you because of that. So I would really caution trying to draw a conclusion based on who wins, other than those two candidates reached out to people. And as somebody once told me when I showed up to my very first How to Run for Office through the League of Women Voters, there are two types of voters. There are people who like you got to get them to vote. And people who vote, you got to get them to like you.
I've heard that. I've heard someone say that once or twice before. But I am going to push a little more. 3 challengers. We've got early results in the precincts we've gotten so far. It looks like Danelle O'Neill is running behind. Very unlikely to finish in the top 2. But Miriam Ashkenazi and Zoe Lynn, they're still in the race. You know, again, we've only got a few precincts in so far. We're getting that data. Let's say Miriam Ashkenazi and Zoe Lynn both win. It's a very different board. How do you think that board goes?
Boy, a majority women board.
It's happened in Brookline before.
I know. You know, I wouldn't take that for granted. It would be, for me personally, that would be kind of exciting. It would be very different. You know, Zoe intimately knows our sustainability goals and the work that we've done to date. And I would expect her to really want to hit the ground running again. We have town meeting just around the corner, and the fossil fuel free incentives are one of 2 warrant articles. So I would expect her to build off of her work that she did when she arranged for those groups and the summit and was working on pushing through, very ambitious warrant articles surrounding that. Miriam, she's a town meeting member currently, and she's got kids in the school system. She has been a vocal advocate on equity issues, and I'm sure Raul would love to have her on the board to work on some of the issues that I know he cares about. So that would be central to a lot of the discussions that we would have as a board. She's also an emergency room physician, if I remember correctly, or at least an emergency, she's in emergency medicine, or has been in the past. So having that perspective, especially during a pandemic, would be welcome to me, at least. We don't really have any healthcare workers on the board currently. So that could be a very useful skill as we continue to talk about reopening and vaccinations and the health implications of so many policies.
Heather, it's been great chatting with you. We may come back to you. I'm getting word we've got at least one more precinct in. We don't want to hold back the news, lest it become olds. So hang tight with us for just a minute. I'm going to go back to the board and let's see what we got. So we've got the live results up. We've got Precinct 2. Now I want to remind you, Precinct 2 runs between St. Paul Street and Pleasant Street, by and large. It's actually, by land area, the smallest precinct in town, which of course, since the population is balanced, makes it the densest precinct in town. And it's a complicated race. 7 candidates. We've got incumbents Linda Olson-Pelkey, Susie Roberts, and that might be it. Maybe Livia Schachter-Call. I apologize. Maybe an incumbent. I don't recall. Christopher Call is a challenger. Kimberly Richardson is a challenger. And Ari Bahar is a challenger. I think Chris Call used to be a town meeting member quite a few years ago. This race was a little more complex because I know that there were cohorts or cliques who were running together. And so this is a wide open race. I've got some bets, but I'm really not sure. Again, like usual, we're going to find out together. Let's see if we can get the results up and see who came out top 5 in Precinct 2. Linda Olson-Pelkey and Susie Roberts, Jacqueline Baum, Kimberly Richardson, and Livia Schachter-Call. That's a great mix. And some new folks, some more experienced folks. Precinct 2, look, you got to get out there and you got to hustle for your precinct. Typically a low turnout precinct. It's very difficult to get into apartment buildings and get people to vote. So it can be a challenge. Congratulations to those candidates for connecting with the voters, pulling them out. And like the rest, I look forward to seeing you in town meeting. We're here in Precinct 6, and I'm hearing we've got Precinct 6 results. I've got a guess. I'm actually going to make a guess. I don't normally do that. But this is my home precinct. I served as a town meeting member for Precinct 6. And I am going to guess that the 4 incumbents, John Bassett, Arthur Conquest, Chris Dempsey, and Dan Saltzman, were all reelected. They all work hard. They all represent different constituencies, but they really get out there. So that brings it down to Ryan Black and Liam Hafter, both newcomers, both worked hard. But, Ryan Black, he was out at the precinct all day long. He got out a mailer or two, really earnest, really interested in rolling up his sleeves and getting to work. I'm guessing Ryan Black. But we don't need to guess. We've got the results. Why are we listening to me? Put it on the board. Let's give him the data. Hey, congratulations, John, Arthur, Chris, Dan, and new town meeting member Ryan Black. Liam, I appreciate that you ran. I hope you stay plugged in. We'd love to see you run next year. And that's what we've got for 6. I don't think we've got any more results yet. We're still waiting for them to come in. And so I shuttle back and forth. Let's go back over to the desk. Heather, let's talk for a minute, if you will, about the warrant. Of course, the warrant, folks, is the set of bylaws, questions that town meeting is going to think through at the end of May. Are there a couple that, what are some topics that you think folks at home are going to be interested in? Not the real nerdy, like town-focused things, town government-focused things like counterbalancing, this, that, but general stuff that folks at home might want to know about?
Boy, that's a good question. I know I heard a public hearing on each individual warrant article, but they happened so late at night and there were 40 of them. Let me try to remember some of them. I mean, the fossil fuel free incentives, I think, is probably the one that most people in the general public, they heard about it in the news when we passed it. And then the AG ruled that it was, out of bounds, essentially kicking it back to us. And we tried to work with the petitioners, the original petitioners of the original warrant article from a couple town meetings ago, tried to work with our planning department to find something that the AG would actually bless. And I know, Tommy, you're working at the state level to try to find something that it won't just be Brookline. It will be hopefully the entire state. So that's probably the thing that most people pay attention to. There were a couple of warrant articles that they do start to get into the policy wonk, and it's the CPA was on the ballot today, but we needed to craft who's going to actually be on our CPA committee hopefully once it passes. So some of it was just cleaning house articles. Some of them were addressing how do we get voter turnout to increase, and what are some of the things that we as the town government actually have the ability to advertise or try to find out, who's in town, why they're not voting, and try to up our numbers. Brookline is actually not that good in the voter turnout. So we need to do a job. So it was really interesting to hear petitioners present their warrant articles, and I really look forward to town meeting towards the end of the month.
We've got a few more results. We're going to go back to the big board. Let's see what we've got. We're going to start with Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is splits Harvard Street south of Coolidge Corner. Some houses, but a lot of apartments. It's a relatively small land area. 6 candidates, 5 positions. We've got incumbents, the Susan Cohen, Susan Granoff, Christy Electris, Jonathan Margolis, and then 2 newcomers, 2 challengers, Chi-Chi Wu and Amanda Zimmerman. And let's see how they did in Precinct 7. So there we have it. Incumbent Susan Cohen, longtime town meeting member, very dedicated. Just didn't quite get enough votes today. Susan, I know you're going to continue to be around and continue to pitch in around Precinct 7 and town. Congratulations to both newcomers, Chi-Chi and Amanda. And as well, congratulations to incumbents Christy Electris, Susan Granoff, and Jonathan Margolis. Let's go now to Precinct 8. Remember, Precinct 8 is north of Coolidge Corner, and on the right side as you're heading toward TJ Maxx, that's the east side, so that's right over here. Again, it's a 6 for 5. Incumbents Tracy Burns, David Mark Goldstein, Anita Johnson, Ed Leckler, and Mike Toffel. Now, to say Isaac Silverberg is a challenger is true, but not as true. Isaac was a town meeting member in Precinct 14. He's recently moved to Precinct 8, so he knows the town, he knows town meeting. The question is, do the voters know him? So let's find out the results. And we're showing all 6-1. That strikes me as unlikely. Maybe there was a tie. Let's go back to Cambridge and see if we can find out. This is exciting. Maybe all 6-1, but I doubt it. Let's see if we can find out what's going on there. I don't know if we're going to get that result first or if we're going to go to Precinct 9. Both are possible. We'll see what the data is able to do. We have a winner, folks. Tracy Burns, David Mark Goldstein, Anita Johnson, and Mike Toffel, all incumbents. Isaac Silverberg, new to the precinct, not new to Brookline. They all got the votes. Professor Ed Leckler, longtime activist, particularly on climate issues, didn't quite get there this year. I have no doubt he also will stay committed, stay focused on both climate issues, and he also tends to focus on national politics and swinging Congress to the Democrats. Congratulations to all the candidates there. I think we've got Precinct 9 teed up. Let's see if we can get to Precinct 9. Precinct 9, of course, is just on the other side of Harvard Street from Precinct 8, so it's north of Coolidge Corner, west side of Harvard, actually nearest TJ Maxx, it covers both sides. Precinct 9 also was a 6 for 5. Several incumbents off the top of my head: Marty Rosenthal, Judith Vanderkay, one more, forgive me, and then 3 challengers: George Abbott White, and 3 challengers: Damon Graff, Sarah Kitterman, Gerald Tuckman. So again, we're going to see 5 winners. Let's see if we find out who they are. And here we have it. So incumbents Marty Rosenthal, George Abbott White, and Judith Vanderkay held their position. Newcomers Sarah Kitterman, Gerald Tuckman, they managed to pull it off. Damon Graff came up a little bit short. I hope he'll stick around. I hope he'll stay focused. I know he's got some priorities that are worth working on, and I hope he stays involved. Congratulations to all 5 winners in Precinct 9. We're still waiting on a couple of precincts. Now, I'm hearing rumors on the select board race and on the moderator race. I think some other folks in town, either they've got the numbers or they think they've got the numbers. I'm not going to spread the rumors. We're going to wait and make sure we call it when we know it and not before. So hold on to your hats. Let's get the data. Let's confirm it from independent sources. Let's confirm it on Brookline Interactive. Why don't we take a break? We'll give a PSA and then we'll come back, and I hope we'll have some more live results when we get back.
We've got another musical treat coming up next. The Brookline Community Band joins us now to perform Water Music.
And we're back, and I'm getting word that we have received the results from all of the precincts, but we've got to do our data check and make sure we verify those results, pop them in, so results are coming soon. We've got just a few precincts left to report town meeting. We've got precinct 3, 10, 11, 12, and then special elections in 15 and 16. So stay tuned. Those results are coming any minute now. Heather, I want to thank you for coming on. I'll point out, as a short-term moment of thought, short-term rentals are also coming up, right? Of course, those are Airbnb and others, and it's a really interesting issue in town, right? Some folks really enjoy using them, and for some folks whose home doesn't necessarily meet the same size as their needs, renting out some space can help make it work in such an expensive town. But of course, neighbors aren't always loving it, and getting the details right is tricky. Do you have any thoughts on threading that needle, what the flashpoint is?
Well, you touched on a lot of it. I particularly find this issue fascinating because of the intricacies. For me, it's about property ownership and what you are allowed to do with property that you own. How much control do your neighbors really have over your private property? We all have to get along because we do live in a slightly denser setting than most surrounding towns. What is the happy medium that everybody can live with? It's very expensive to live here. People want to stay. They say they need the extra income. They say that this, brings visitors to Brookline. And then some people complain about the noise and the cars that are brought when people don't understand that we don't have overnight parking on street. So it is a very difficult needle to thread. I think personally we need to do something because right now our bylaws are silent, and as such, it really puts our building department in a precarious position of ruling on something that was not necessarily anticipated 100 years ago. So we need to do something. It's basically the Uber of 2021.
Well, we'll see what town meeting does. I know there are several warrant articles, several amendments. It's still in play. Interesting stuff and important stuff. Heather, I want to thank you for all of the time you spent with us this evening. I know you've got a lot to do getting ready for town meeting. At least you had it, normally you would have had a Tuesday night off, but you spent it with us. So we at Brookline Interactive Group are very grateful. Thank you for your time. I'm hearing we're getting results, and I'm hoping that they come in quickly enough that this will be the last run of results. So Heather, thanks for coming on. I hope you'll stay tuned and learn as we do just who you'll be working with on the select board over the next couple of years.
Thank you for the opportunity, Tommy.
Have a very good night. Let's go to the board. Let's see what we've got. I'm hearing we've got precinct 3. Precinct 3, North Brookline, on the Muddy River side of Beacon Street. Complicated race. 7 folks for 5 seats. We've got incumbents Jeffrey Benson, Dennis Dowdy, Jane Gilman, former State Representative Gary Jones, and Don Laka. We've also got 2 challengers, Gina Hahn and Michael Zurab. Now this race, this was a challenging race for a couple of different reasons. There were a few different cohorts of groups, endorsements from groups like PAX and Brookline for Everyone, kind of mixed and matched. And I also want to make a point, Gary Jones, who's a longtime town meeting member, he took a spill several weeks ago and was not able to campaign. In fact, I believe a proxy of his tried to help and may have made some mistakes. So it's been a complicated race. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we've got the results. So let's find out, precinct 3, who's going to stay in town meeting, if we're going to get any newcomers. We've got some results. So as I said, Gary Jones, he wasn't able to campaign, and I think that that made it hard for him. But we do have winners Jeffrey Benson, Dennis Dowdy, and Jane Gilman, all incumbents. and 2 newcomers to town meeting, Gina Hahn and Michael Zurab. In this precinct, one of the big debates was around development, as we've seen in other precincts in North Brookline, and a diverse set of opinions on that issue elected by the same voters. So it's a combination of issues, personalities, hard work, right? A variety of different issues come to play here in Precinct 3. I'm hearing rumors we're going to get to another precinct next, Precinct 10. Precinct 10, also, again, a competitive town meeting race, and it's a really, it's a string bean precinct, right? So it runs along Beacon Street from roughly Coolidge Corner all the way to Washington Square, mostly south of Beacon Street, but it includes the Coolidge Corner Branch Library north of Beacon Street. Now, historically, Precinct 10 had relatively low turnout. In fact, it would compete with Precinct 2 for the lowest turnout. But a couple of years ago, even though the boundary didn't change, even though the buildings didn't change, the turnout in Precinct 10 really started to move upward, and it continues to move upward. I don't have the turnout count at my hands today, but I will bet the turnout in Precinct 10 was pretty strong. After all, 7 for 5, a mix of newcomers and incumbents. Scott Ananian, who's also on the ballot for moderator, that gives him a really good chance of winning a town meeting seat. Voters would have been very familiar with him from that race, as well as from his work over the past few years. Linda Davis, longtime town meeting member. Ted Livingston also has been in town meeting a while. My good friend Naomi Schweitzer. Newcomers to town meeting races, Jeremy De La Cruz, Roz Feldberg, Eric Hyatt. You may remember Eric. Eric ran for select board last year. Couldn't make it happen then. Let's see if he was able to get the votes today. Again, we're going to get 5 winners from these 7. And here we have them. So this is exciting. This is not necessarily what folks might have expected. 2 incumbents weren't able to get the votes. They may have been hampered by COVID. We don't know the full story, but congratulations to Scott Ananian, Naomi Schweitzer, incumbents, and 3 newcomers, Jeremy De La Cruz, Roz Feldberg, and Eric Hyatt. Wonderful diversity of backgrounds and ideas in this group. I look forward to serving in town meeting with all of them. We've got a few more precincts left. What do we've got left? We're waiting on Precinct 11, which had a competitive race, 12, competitive race, and then we have competitive races in town meeting for the 15th and 16th precinct special elections. But we also need to get all the results in for some of the other precincts to make sure we can call the townwide races. Again, I told you that I'm hearing some rumors on select board and moderator. I haven't confirmed them. I'm not going to call them. I will also tell you I've seen the results for a few of the precincts on question 1 and question 2. And what I have seen so far, this is not a prediction, this is not a forecast, these are anecdotes. The precincts that I saw on my phone when we were watching a PSA for question 1 were very close, sometimes within a few votes. When I saw votes on question 2, the yes seemed to be far ahead of no. And so again, that's only a couple of precincts. I'm not going to call that a forecast. I'm not going to call that a prediction. But hold on to your hats for question 1. We're not sure how it's going to go. Question 2, I'm feeling pretty optimistic that yes is going to pass, but we don't know yet. So what I want to do now, we're going to go back, but we said goodnight to Heather Hamilton. I'm hoping that former select board member Ben Franco is available. Let's see if we can get him on and pick his brain about virtual town meeting. Ben, how are you tonight?
I'm well. Good to be with you, Tommy.
Ben, I got to be honest. I don't believe that that's your bookshelf.
You know, we can all be aspire to be in a different place when we're on Zoom.
Well, I'm in a different place. I'm here in the big studios, and I want to remind folks, this is the first live production at Big Studios since the pandemic began. I'm going to just take a quick minute before we talk, Ben, to let folks know how hard Big has worked throughout the pandemic to keep local government functioning while we were all working from home. But also how hard that the team worked for this production. Bringing the results live, it's not easy. And me hamming it up in front of the camera That's the easy part. The hard part is getting all of the technologies working together, bringing folks together from Zoom, bringing in the videos, getting everything prepared. Hundreds of hours the team has spent putting this episode together. I know we've got quite a few viewers at home, and I'm delighted, and we're hoping we can get folks the results. I know everyone's at the edge of their seat. I am too. I'm on a stool, still on the edge. Folks may not know, Ben, after you finished your term on the select board, you didn't go away. You actually were a major contributor in town meeting, but not as a town meeting member. Ben, you helped make the town meeting work. Tell us a little bit about how town meeting transitioned from being in person at the high school auditorium to online.
Well, I can't take all the credit. Of course, there's a team of folks that have helped run the past few virtual town meetings, run using the platform we're on tonight, the Zoom platform, and including BIG. And I echo your sentiments about the value that BIG provides to town meeting, but also to the residents of town, making public meetings and public conversations available to everybody from the comfort of their living room. Given the COVID pandemic, the town meeting contingent thought that it wasn't wise to have everybody gather in the high school as we've done almost since time immemorial, it seems like, and therefore we transitioned to the Zoom platform. That first transition back now almost a year ago in May of 2020, I do want to give kudos to Boston University. They were hugely instrumental in allowing us to pivot pretty quickly from an in-person to a virtual experience. And BU, free of cost, free of charge, was kind enough to give us access to their event team, who does this for a living, runs large events. And what we effectively did, again, with support from BU that first time, and then again this past fall using town staff, was to set up a virtual meeting room, to have some pre-registration for speakers, and the moderator then ran an effectively entirely virtual town meeting where there was voting that took place using the polling feature that I think we're all very familiar with in Zoom. And we had a platform, a person sort of serving as the chat moderator who was queuing people up to speak on particular items that were before town meeting, and to give them a chance to ask questions and make comments. And that was the role that you alluded to that I filled. Largely successful. Never thought that we'd be doing this for a third time, but here we are. And obviously we're going to have a new moderator for this May town meeting. But I think the team that's helped run the town meeting for the past several instances is largely intact. And I think that new moderator is going to plug in well. And as a member of that town meeting team, looking forward to direction and hearing their thoughts about how we can do even better going forward.
I want to hear more, but first I want folks at home to hear about the results in Precinct 11. We want to know which Precinct 11 town meeting members are going to join us on town meeting virtually. Precinct 11, this is Summit Ave. And if you know anything about Summit Ave, you know it's much better to go downhill than uphill on Summit Ave. 6 candidates, 5 seats. We've got incumbents, Shira Fisher, David Pollock, Ann Weaver, and David Cruringhouse, and 2 newcomers, Jonathan Golden and Jacob Parati. And like all the other precincts, we're going to get 5 winners. Let's see which 5 were able to cross the line. Very common, right? So we see 4 incumbents. Congratulations, Shira, David, Ann, and David. And one of the 2 newcomers, Jonathan Golden. Excellent work. It's a tight-knit precinct. I think that in some ways it may have been a little easier to campaign in 11 than in some other precincts, because I know that particular neighborhood is quite tight. Congratulations to you 5. I'm getting word that we've got results from Precinct 12. Precinct 12 is sort of in central Brookline. Here we see, right, so south of Washington Street, south of Beacon Street, and right up the hill. We're going to see if we can get them, but again, it was a competitive race. I believe it was a 6 for 5. That's right. So we've got incumbents Amy Hummel, Mark Lowenstein, Harry Margolis, and 3 challenges, Petra Bignami, Alec Jarrett, and Mazel Jarrett. Now, Petra had signs all over Precinct 12, which is not especially common for town meeting candidates. I think that she really got out there and hustled. Is it going to pay off? Let's find out. Let's see which 5 folks from Precinct 12 are the town meeting members elected. It did pay off, right? So we see all 3 incumbents, Amy Hummel, Harry Margolis, Mark Lowenstein won. Mazel Jarrett and Petra Bignami, congratulations to both of you. You're going to do great at Zoom town meeting, and now we're going to cut back to Ben. Ben, thanks for hanging out. What I'm wondering about for town meeting and Zoom is I know that the moderator, in addition to having to really focus and manage the town meeting, which really is an intense effort, also had to manage Zoom. And surely he had some help on the scene. Surely he had some help in person helping him manage that. So walk us through the folks who helped him juggle all of those balls at once, including you, Ben Franco.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There's a small group of folks in the high school auditorium with the moderator, or at least have been a year ago, May of 2020, and then in the fall, November of 20. I am one of those folks that's sitting there, socially distanced from the moderator, helping him get through the warrant and run an orderly meeting. In addition to myself, there are 3 other members of the IT staff that sit there, largely running the polling feature that I talked about just a moment ago, and somebody that is sort of the Wizard of Oz type role, switching cameras and making sure that that the right person appears not only on the big screen, the IG screen, but also on individual town meeting members' screens, so that they can know who's speaking and track the conversation. So a small group of folks that are in the auditorium with the moderator, socially distanced, hoping to make sure that meeting concludes and continues to be an effective way for residents and town meeting members to voice their opinion and vote on the important issues that come before the body.
Now, some of the technical things in town meeting in person, folks, depending on the circumstance, can shout out, for example, to call the question, can approach a microphone to ask a question to be somehow in the speaker's order. And when we vote, maybe it's a show of hands or a call of the yeas and nays, or maybe we use not a cell phone, but a little clicker with some buttons. But none of that works quite that way on Zoom. So how do folks do things like that on Zoom?
A couple of different questions in there, Tommy. So let me try and take them one by one, and you can chime in if I miss something. Voting, perhaps the most important thing that happens in town meetings, so we know what's got majority support or 2/3 support, depending on what the proposal is. All of that happens using the Zoom polling feature. So you're right, in an in-person meeting, there are things that are statutorily or traditionally done by town meeting that are not contentious. And frequently we can have a standing vote or a vote by a show of hands, or even just people expressing their opinion for or against by saying yes or no. All of that we hope to return to one day, but while we're virtual, everything is done using the polling feature of Zoom. Now, there's a difference between a recorded vote and a non-recorded vote when we're in person. Now, that distinction continues to be possible while doing town meeting virtually, and as is the practice when we're in person, there's a minimum threshold of people that's required to have a vote be recorded, and for a resident or anybody in the future to go back and say, Tommy, you voted yes on this question and no on this question, or Ben, you voted yes on this question or no on that question. So I think that's the answer to the voting question. Everything's done via the Zoom polling feature. We continue to have a distinction between recorded and non-recorded votes. In terms of lining up at the microphone to ask a question based on the conversation, the debate that's happened about a particular proposal, or to stand up and call the question to terminate debate. All of that's done via the Zoom chat feature. And the role that I filled for the past few town meetings is to be the chat monitor. So people who want to ask a question will write to me and say, I've got a question, can I get it in line? I maintain that line of people, and I promise I'm taking them in the order that they come into me via the chat. And if somebody's got calls the question or has got a point of order, some parliamentary procedure, they take precedent. And I call over to the moderator and immediately stop the debate, and he calls on that individual, and they can raise the point that they wanted to bring to the body's attention immediately.
So it's a lot of moving pieces, and that's with an expert and experienced moderator. We're not going to have an experienced moderator in this coming town meeting. We're going to have a new moderator, either Scott Ananian or Kate Poverman. How are they going to get up to speed? Are there going to be training classes? I mean, how are they going to get with the flow?
I think you're onto something. There's nothing quite like a Brookline town meeting, no matter where you sit in the body, either as a town meeting member or as the moderator. I think we're lucky in Brookline that both candidates for moderator, Scott Ananian or Kate Poverman, are longtime, very active town meeting members. So they know the ins and outs of what's going on. Kate Poverman is an attorney. Scott Ananian works in the technology field, so he's very, very comfortable with technology. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but one of the advantages to having a team helping the moderator while we're doing this virtual town meeting is we can help him or her, depending on who is elected this evening, figure out how to be effective in running a virtual town meeting. And there's a little bit of training wheels there, a support network built in. And again, I said that both of the candidates for moderator are experienced town meeting members and know pretty much what to expect. And I trust they've been following the debate the lead up to town meeting.
And so, some of the early articles are, I don't want to say easy, but certainly not controversial. We'll start with the measure of wood and bark, always question number one in the May town meeting. But then we get into budget, and budget may have some more contested or more controversial issues. How, in person, right, we can see people get to the microphone, you can read the room, you can kind of feel the tension. How does that play out on Zoom?
I think it's remarkably similar in that the structure of the conversation is largely unchanged from an in-person to a virtual meeting. And by that, I mean that we're going to go item by item, line item by line item, and the moderator, I expect, is going to give town meeting members an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment. I think you're onto something, that there's nothing quite like being able to read the room and stare across the auditorium or look to your neighbor and see how they're reacting or what's even highlighted in their combined reports, the guiding document of town meeting. And I think that's just a disadvantage, a limitation of virtual town meeting. I will add that I've heard rumors that there are active conversations going on via various texting platforms and social media platforms about the item. So I do think that we haven't quite lost the constant communication and chatter that takes place either within a precinct or amongst like-minded and aligned town meeting members.
What we have lost are the cookies. Ben, your favorite cookie at town meeting?
I'm a fan of the oatmeal raisin.
Oatmeal raisin. Man, you got a big white head and boring cookies. I'm a chocolate chip guy, but what I learned long ago, you don't eat a chocolate chip cookie if you're wearing a white shirt, because I promise you're going to get a little bit of chip on there. Bad news for the rest of the night. Any issues in town meeting that you think are going to take a left turn that you think maybe folks don't know are going to be interesting, and we're going to be deep in the debate?
You know, I'll punt on the left turn, but I do think one of the other major issues that's coming before town meeting is some changes to the marijuana licensing and regulations. This is an issue that's, during my time on the select board, really consumed a lot of the airtime at the meetings, and several town meeting members and several neighbors at the Netta dispensary in particular were very, very vocal about saying what they thought should or shouldn't happen there. That's again on the warrant for town meeting, and I look forward to and expect a lively conversation about marijuana once again at town meeting.
Well, you know, my hope is that seeing Sean Lynn Jones reelected to town meeting, that he will give us a good solid 30 or 35 puns in a 3-minute speech about marijuana, as he has done in the past. Folks, I'm hearing that we're very close, that our team is working out the final results and putting the graphics up. Ben, I want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're either going to get Ben or we're going to get results. Let's find out. We'll see you after the break.
Hi everyone, I'm Raymond from Lebanon, and I spent last September in Brookline rotating at the Brigham and Women's. I'm back in my country now, and we're also fighting the COVID-19 crisis, and we are also seeking racial justice and all kinds of social justice. So we're with you till the end. Okay, keep fighting. وإن شاء الله كل شيء بيكون منيح ومنخلص من كورونا وبتتحقق العدالة الاجتماعية. Okay, love you Brookline.
I'm Hadassah Margolis, activist in Brookline via town meeting, Brookline Women's Commission, Welcome Blanket Brookline, Got Mass Brookline, and Inclusive Brookline. I am thrilled to have partnered with Brookline Interactive on 3 major projects since 2019. We collaborated on Interwoven, a weekend-long celebration and exploration of immigration and craft, a set of online mask-making tutorials this past spring to help address COVID-19, and a series of helpful videos on mail-in voting for the 2020 primary and national elections. With Brookline Interactive's help, our community members have made immigration policy front and center while creating close to 200 blankets to welcome our new neighbors. We crafted almost 7,000 homemade masks to donate to our community and beyond. And we have had an overwhelming mail-in ballot turnout in our most crucial election season of our time. Because of Brookline Interactive, civic engagement in Brookline is accessible, understandable, and doable. Brookline Interactive is a true social justice warrior in our community, and our partnerships have built vital connections across our town.
Ben, we've got great news. Our work here is done because we've got results. Ben Franco, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Former select board member, continue to really work hard for the town in ways that maybe not everybody's aware of, but really help keep the gears moving. Ben, any predictions?
I predict we're going to have a new moderator and a new town clerk.
Thank you, Ben. Out on a limb there. Let's not delay. Let's get some results. So I think we're going to start. We've still got precinct 15 and 16 special elections. So precinct 15, it's a 2-year seat. One of the two is going to win. 2 very different candidates, very different histories and personalities. Without further ado, who's going to represent precinct 15 for the next 2 years? Jean Senat-Flory, congratulations to you. Now, he had been caucused in, so he had a little bit of experience. Chloe Janes, I have no doubt you're going to stay plugged in. You're going to keep working. You're going to stay active. Look forward to seeing you in the future. Let's go to precinct 16. I think we've got results for 16 as well. Again, it's a short seat. It's a 2-year seat. One of the two, Richard Murphy or David Day. Let's find out who won there. David Day, congratulations, David. Richard Murphy, I know you put in a Warren article about tree preservation. I'm a fan. I know you've got lots of other fans. Let's keep you plugged in as well. I think we're ready for some townwide results. Now, I want to remind you, we've got a couple of races left. We've got questions 1 and question 2 about the town clerk and about the CPA. We've got select board, 2 winners out of 5 candidates we're going to see. We've got the school committee short seat, 2 candidates, 1 winner. And we've got the moderator, 2 candidates, 1 winner. So we're going to pull up some graphics. We're going to find out. As I said before, there's some rumors floating around, but we wanted to confirm them. We wanted to make sure we had the numbers right. We love to be first. More important to be right. And we want to make sure that we were right. I also want to flag that we know Precinct 16 had a little bit of a challenge this morning with the polling machine. Our understanding is it was repaired very quickly and that there was no loss of fidelity in the election. So we're gonna trust that that's true. We're gonna start with moderator. We were just talking with my friend Ben Franco about it again. Scott Ananian, Kate Poverman, townwide. This is to be moderator for the next 3 years. Let's see who won it. Congratulations, Kate Poverman. Kate, I have no doubt you're going to be excellent. I look forward to the race, and I look forward, to being in town meeting and seeing how you step up to this very difficult challenge. Thick skin, stay focused, you'll do great. Next up, we've got select board. Folks, this was a really complicated race. Because you can vote for 2 candidates, it's not clear how it plays. So Bernard Green and Nancy Heller, the incumbents, they ran together. They ran as a slate. They asked folks to vote for both of them. Miriam Ashkenazi, unbelievably gifted campaigner, really focused on justice, and I think it resonated. I think folks thought it was important. Janelle O'Neill grew up in Brookline, worked for DPW, really has an understanding of the community in ways, frankly, folks who didn't grow up in Brookline, like myself, have. And then Zoe Lynn, fierce on climate, focused on wicked problems. Again, we're going to get 2 winners, the top 2. Let's see who it is. This is a really interesting result. Congratulations, Chair of the Select Board and incumbent Bernard Green, and town meeting member from Precinct 13, Miriam Ashkenazi. Now, these 2, their positions are quite different. They have a different view on things, and now they're going to work together alongside Raul Fernandez, John Van Scoyac, and Heather Hamilton, who we spoke with earlier. This is a pivot in town. This is a really important moment. I'm sure some of it relates directly to the Gerald Alston case, to his firing by the town as a firefighter, and all of the court cases that followed. Miriam Ashkenazi was quite clear that she believes Gerald Alston hasn't gotten the justice he deserves. And it's clear that the voters heard that. And so this is great, but we've still got question 1 and question 2 and the school committee. I don't know if we've got them in yet. We do. School committee, right? Remember, this is a 1-year seat. 2 really strong candidates, 2 folks who I think both have a promising career ahead of them in the school committee, but only one is going to start next week. Let's see who won this one. Stephen Ehrenberg, congratulations. Stephen had the backing of the Brookline Parents Organization and Brookline PACs. And I think that really helped push him over the line. Val ran a great campaign. I have no doubt she'll stay plugged in. I hope to see her run for school committee again. She really brought a lot to the race. Thank you for running, both of you. Stephen, you're in for a heck of a ride on school committee. It is not an easy task. We've got left 2 ballot questions. Question 1, which relates to whether or not we'll have an appointed or an elected town clerk. A yes will be appointed, a no will retain the elected. And remember, if no wins, Ben Kaufman is the town clerk for sure. He won the town clerk race. If yes wins, it will be up to that select board, including newcomer Miriam Ashkenazi, to decide who the town clerk will be. I'm at the edge of my seat. I'm excited about this race. What's going to happen? Appointed town clerk has failed. It will continue to be elected. That's great news for Ben Kaufman. It's also great news for folks who felt like they wanted to choose town clerk directly. Congratulations to the No on One campaign. Congratulations to Ben Kaufman. Let's go to the CPA. Question 2. CPA, remember, that's about an increase in our property tax to fund recreation, affordable housing, parks and open space, and historic preservation. I think this one passed overwhelmingly. Let's find out if it passed. It did. So congratulations to folks who are focused on that now. The town is going to work through putting together a CPA committee and figuring out how to spend those town dollars matched with matching money from the state. So we've done it. We've gone through all the races. We didn't get them as quickly as I had hoped. We're running a little behind, but we're going to keep doing all the things that we want to do. I'm hoping, I don't know if Jenna Fisher is still available. I'm hoping that she is for a quick call. I just want to get her view on things. Jenna, I wish we had more time. Tell us what you saw today before we then hear from, we're going to hear from the candidates who won, but first I want to hear from you. What did you see out there today?
I saw a lot of rain, Tommy. I saw people coming out and voting, trickling. It was a trickle out there. In the end, it looks like about 17% of voters showed up to vote and or mailed in their ballots. I saw a lot of anxious voters or people who were passionate about the election but weren't sure which way it was going to go, and I think this result seems to show that that both sides kind of got what they were looking for in some way or not. I went over to precinct 16 this morning and talked to them a little bit about what happened with the voting box, and they assured me that it was a minor hiccup, and they got town hall on it quite fast. They sent out a technician and fixed the ballot. And what happens when you can't use your the machine, they'll take the ballots and put them into a locked black box so that they can be counted and fed into the machine later. I talked to the town clerk's office afterwards and asked them how that would work and if that would slow down the tally at all. And they said they were absolutely certain it would not slow down the tally.
Well, that's unfortunate because we got the results a little later than we thought, and I was hoping folks would just say it's precinct 16's fault.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We weren't able to process them as quickly as we had hoped, but we've got to the results and we feel good about them. Any surprises?
I have to say, I don't know if there was any surprises because I don't think anyone really, I was asking everyone what they thought, where they thought it was going to go, and nobody really knew, especially with COVID, as previous speakers had said, there was no knocking on doors, not a real sense of just where this was going to land. But it is something to note that if Kate Poverman won the town moderator spot, she's the first woman in recent memory to get that position, and that's a big deal.
My hunch, she did win, and my hunch is if she's the first in recent memory in Brookline, she's the first. I have a hard time imagining we had a female moderator many years ago. Women have had the franchise for a little more than 100 years at this point, so I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
But you raise a great point. There's still work to do throughout our society in making sure that folks who haven't always had a fair shot are reaching all the positions of power, and moderator certainly is one of them. Jenna, I want to thank you. I'd love to chat more, but we've got winners who want to get on TV, and we want to share those with the audience. I'm hoping we can go to Ben Kaufman first, and let's see what he says about being the new town clerk. Jenna, thanks so much for all of your work on the patch and in town, and I hope you'll stay tuned as well.
Thanks, Tommy.
Now we're going to see if we can get Ben Kaufman on, but we don't know. We're trying to find him. He's probably out celebrating. He's probably out having a good time. No, I think we've got him. There he is. Ben, let me be a person to say congratulations. I don't know if I'm the first, but congratulations.
Thank you, Representative. You're certainly one of the first to say it, and I'm very excited that the people of Brookline chose to have me as their next town clerk.
Well, they didn't just do that. They chose you to be the town clerk, and they also decided that they wanted to continue choosing the town clerk. So it was a 1-2 punch. But that means you're already planning your reelection, right? You're already thinking 3 years out?
I think I'm always thinking about what's going to be best for the voters. You know, we trust people in Brookline to make the right choice for our leaders, and every day you've got to earn every single vote for the next time that you're going to be up.
So you know, you didn't run on a lark. I know you put a lot of thought into it, and I know that you've observed some opportunity to improve the office. So what should we, as voters, as residents of town, expect from the town's clerk's office in the upcoming weeks, months, and years?
Absolutely. As town clerk, I want to get started on day one to make sure that we have equity and accessibility in our elections, that we have a transparent town government, and that we really have a modernized town government that works and is accessible to everybody. I have two big priorities from where I get started. The first one, as you were talking about earlier, we have town meeting coming up later this month. So doing the work to prepare for that, make sure that people are able to have effective discussions and conversations and about warrant articles, and make sure that the results of that town meeting are made public and easily understood for everybody. And the second thing that I want to do is I want to work with the public health department to reopen the clerk's office to full in-person access. You know, they closed down during the pandemic, which I thought was very smart at the time, but it's time that we open up and allow everybody to easily access the clerk's office once again.
So a couple of key questions in my mind. You're not married, but have you ever married anyone?
I have not married anybody, but as town clerk, I would be a justice of the peace and would be able to do that. And I think it'll be exciting to play a role in someone's most important day.
How about dogs? Do you like dogs? A lot of dogs come through the clerk's office.
I do love dogs, and that's probably the reason I'm most excited to be the town clerk, is the opportunity to meet every pup in town.
Make sure you've got those doggy treats ready. I know that outgoing clerk Pat Ward had a jar of doggy treats, and if ever I was really hungry, I might sneak in and beg for one. So the doggy treats are key. So that's what we talked about: marriages. We talked about doggies. Voter registration, right? Registered voters got to come through you. Does the town clerk have a role in encouraging or fostering more residents in town who are eligible to be registered? And have you thought about that at all?
So I have. I think that there is an opportunity for the town clerk's office to help facilitate increased voter registration, especially in some of the most vulnerable communities. So as town clerk, I would definitely want to work with the schools and help with civic engagement. So students coming out of Brookline schools are ready to be participants in our democracy. And I'd also want to target some of our underrepresented communities, working with Brookline Housing Authority and other organizations to make sure that everybody's voice is being heard in our town government. And the best way to have your voice be heard is to show up and vote.
Well, Ben, I want to congratulate you again. I know that under state law, you don't actually become town clerk until a week from today. It's just it's a thoughtful state law. I'm sure that the legislature had exactly this situation in mind. So the current town clerk's office is going to wrap up this election, and then you're off and running in a week. Congratulations again, Ben.
Thank you, Representative. I really appreciate it.
I think we're going to go now, if we can, to let's go to the select board. I want to start. Let's start with Miriam. You know, she's a newcomer. She ran a great race. I say newcomer. She's not new to town. She's not new to town government, but she was a challenger. She's new to the select board. Miriam, congratulations. That's a heck of a run. That's tough to run against two incumbents. Well done.
Thank you. I have to say, this was really a team win, 1,000%. There's absolutely no way I could have done this without the most amazing campaign team and volunteers and supporters. Really fantastic.
Now, I know recent events may have helped, but I know you started this campaign many months ago, and you laid out a plan at the beginning. Did you stick to your plan? Because it sure worked.
Yes, the first thing I did was seek advice. And I met with a lot of people who have done this or who have a long history of experience in town politics. And my father always gave me a great piece of advice. He used to say, hire an expert and listen to them. And whereas I didn't hire an expert, I certainly sat and had a lot of conversations with experts, and I tried to listen to them. And with that information, we mapped out a plan and we stuck to it. And actually, that was one of the pieces of advice, which was make a plan and stick to it.
Obviously, you bend a little bit as the situation unfolds, but I think that's good advice. I would love to pick your brain, but actually what I think the viewers want is they want to hear about your vision for the next 3 years, how you're going to work with the rest of the select board, with town meeting, with everyone else. What changes can we expect and how are we going to get it done? Miriam, it's all you.
Well, I really have to say that today I think justice, inclusivity, and good governance went a foot in the door of Brookline politics. And I really think now we have to throw open that door and let in the fresh air. We need to make room for everyone and work towards change. So how do we do that? What do we think about? I think we have to begin work in earnest to develop a pandemic recovery plan. I think we also need to keep our eye on getting final closure for Gerald Alston, reimagining public safety. And as I said on the campaign trail, I really do think it's important we have a strategic plan that's aligned with our budget and reflects our priorities. So I think those are really my top line. It sounds like a lot. It is a lot. Think big, do big. I think that's really, we have to start thinking about how we can really help the community as a whole. So I think especially pandemic response is going to be very big on my list.
Well, you said think big. I'm thinking big. I'm holding up my Brookline Interactive Group mug. And I hope that you will, hey, I'm allowed to put in any plug I want. It's my show. I hope that you will think about Brookline Interactive Group's role in the community. Geez, if it wasn't for big, I'd be out on the streets tonight doing something instead of, being here in safety and shelter, wearing my tuxedo, having fun. I feel like I should ask you one more question, so I'm going to stall for a minute while I think of it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you while you think of it, I will say I'm in full support of BIG. I think BIG is a really important access, inclusivity, and educational and democratizing tool in our town that we need to support.
All right, I got one more question for you. So the select board members, each of them speak at town meeting on warrant articles, right? And so there's like 40 warrant articles. So you'll probably do a couple. Any thoughts on which warrant articles you want to speak for the select board on?
Oh, goodness. Well, I guess I just volunteered to speak on the one in favor of supporting BIG.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Miriam Ashkenazi, new select board member. You got a lot of work ahead of you. I know you're up to the task. A lot of late nights. I have no doubt that you'll be responsive to the community. You'll roll up your sleeves and you'll get to work. Really, congratulations on an excellent race. You deserve the win, and I'm delighted you were able to come on BIG and talk about it.
Great. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much. Thank you to BIG.
No doubt.
Thank you to the voters of Brookline.
No doubt you'll have a great night. Be well. So there are two select board winners, and we want to hear from both of them. The other select board winner was incumbent and chair of the select board, Bernard Green. Bernard, I was lucky enough to see you today right outside the high school for the polling location of 6, 7, and 10. Out there in the rain, working hard. And you've been at this a while, so you have a different perspective on the job than Miriam Ashkenazi, who's new to the job. But you're in it together. Bernard, are you on tonight? Can we
yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Tell us what you think.
Well, the voters have spoken. It's not the result that I would want, other than my election, but the voters have spoken, and we've got to figure out how to ensure that the 5 board members, including Miriam, who I welcome to the select board, how we can work together to for the benefit of the town and its residents. It's going to be a very difficult job, but we can do it. It's going to be a lot of tension, stress, like there was in the campaign. I must say that this was a intense campaign, not because of the other candidates, but many of their supporters. And that is one thing that we as a town, in addition to we as a select board, are going to have to deal with and get over and figure out how can we work for the benefit of the town. There's a story I want to tell that is kind of useful, maybe not particularly profound, but in 2015, one of my opponents was Pam Lodish, and we had a fairly intense campaign against each other. Very stark differences on many issues, but we always were civil to each other. I found connections between Pam's husband and a period of time that I was in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and was on the school board. Pam's husband actually was a member of the Hall of Fame at Cleveland Heights High School. So we made that connection. Similarly with the 2018 campaign, Richard Nangle and I had some knockdown drag-outs, but we always were cordial to each other. We talked about going out and playing golf after the campaign. We never got around to doing that. My fault for that. But we kept everything cordial. And this time around in 2021, both Pam and Richard have graciously endorsed and supported my campaign. Now that doesn't mean anything other than that it's important to know that people will remember, and it's important. Well, it's important to know that if you treat people decently, good things come out of that eventually. And I think that many people in town should think about that. And I hope that that little story can be of value as we try to struggle through the intense emotions and difficult conversations we've been having in Brookline over the past few months.
And I want to just pick up on that for a minute. No question, former President Donald Trump's rhetoric inflames all of our rhetoric. No question, doing things over Zoom, wearing masks, losing some of that personal touch that's at least 6,000 years of evolutionary history has honed is harming us. But also, no question, elected officials, myself included, need to be held accountable for our decisions, for our actions. And so I share your hope that that continues to happen, both through elections and in between, but that we're able to do it in a way where we're building towards something rather than tearing things down. We're building toward positive results. Bernard, you've got another 3 years on the select board. God love you. That'll be 7, 8, and 9. Maybe someday your family will get to spend time with you again. So you ran because you've still got work to do. Tell us about some of the things you'd like to do in the upcoming years.
Of course, the main thing that we all have to figure out how to do is recover from COVID. How do we get Brookline, just like the country, back on track? COVID just walloped us, and that means figuring out ways to provide assistance to the business community because we lost a lot of businesses in Brookline, and many others are sort of hanging on by a string. It also means helping families that have suffered from job loss or other COVID-related issues, providing them with some type of support so that they can get back on their feet and recover from this COVID period. So that's the main thing on our agenda. We're going to have some money from the federal government, both directly to the town as well as through the county. And I'm going to be meeting with county commissioners later on this week to talk about making Brookline or making sure that they understand the needs that Brookline has in distribution of the money that is coming to them. So, recovering from COVID is the main thing I have on my agenda. Of course, other things such as policing reform effort that I've undertaken, has come to a significant conclusion in significant areas, and we just need to close that up, get the Police Commissioners Advisory Committee up and running, and take other measures to develop more support among the town residents, all town residents of the police department. There are just a zillion other things. I have stacks of papers where I'm trying to figure some of them out. But those two sort of pop to mind, and of course, those are things that are on everyone's mind, and I think that we'll have to deal with them, and we will.
Well, Bernard, you've had a really, I think, a steady hand throughout all of this, and I think the town is better for it. I congratulate you, and you have no more hair to lose, so you got nothing to lose left, right? Another 3 years. It's a lot of work. I don't think maybe folks don't appreciate just how much work it is. I know you're going to keep at it, and I thank you for your work. And roll up the sleeves. We got town meeting coming.
Yep. And thank you, Tommy, for all you do. I mean, you've really been incredible support to the town and the legislature, as well as around town, helping with various projects. The Stop Asian Hate signs that you've put up, I think, have just dominated the town and played a very important role in getting people to understand that this is a continuing problem that we have. Not as, just, hatred of our Asian community, but, I always say, and that hatred is indivisible. You hate Asian community, you hate me. You hate me, you're hating, other communities in town. So thank you for all you do. And we all notice, and we all appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Select Board Member Green. I think we're going to go to Steve Ehrenberg next, but I do want to quickly say, Chair Green mentioned my role with the Stop Asian Hate signs. My role was like this big. The real credit goes out to folks like Chi-Chi Wu, who's a new town meeting member, the Brookline Asian American Family Network, BAAFN. Folks like that did the work. I just helped out a little bit at the end. I happen to have a porch and a few bucks in the campaign account. So really, I want to emphasize the work that they did. Again, thank you, Bernard. We're going to go to Stephen Ehrenberg, the new school committee member. That was a tough race, folks. All along asked, what do you think about this race? What do you think about that race? School committee for me was the toughest to call. Two really strong candidates, slightly different styles, different places where they had support. Steve, heck of a job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tommy.
So you've been to your first school committee meeting yet since you've been elected? They have them all the time.
I think the first one's on Thursday. I'm excited to get started. I've never run for anything before since high school, and I lost that race. So I'm a newbie. This is the first time I've done something like this. I just want to take the opportunity to say thanks to the folks on my campaign team and the people who are supporting me. I just got a ton of really warm, generous assistance from a lot of people. And I just want to thank the voters of Brookline. I'm excited that my message resonated with people, and I'm excited to start working. Well, I also want to say, Tommy, that I want to thank my opponent in this race, Val Frias, who the more we campaigned, the more I have felt respect and admiration for her. And I really mean that. So it's humbling to win this election against Val because I have so much respect for her. I feel like a lot of times when I was talking to voters, people were saying, what's the difference between you two? And I couldn't really point to values because I felt that I shared most of hers. So it was just really a difference of some of our background and some of our immediate priorities, I think.
I'd hope you let's take a minute and hear about some of those priorities. So school committee, it's 9 folks. It can be hard to have your vision become the vision, but there's a lot of different things a school committee does. So what are some of the things you're hoping to get involved with in your short time in office? Because it's a 1-year seat or it's a 2-year seat?
It's a 1-year seat.
It's a 1-year seat, so you've got
One-year seat.
You're on the clock.
1-year seat, Tommy.
You're on the clock. What are you going to do with your time?
Oh, Tommy, let's see. I mean, to me, the top priority is to help students recover from this last year. I think it's been a rough year for a lot of students in the public school system here in Brookline and everywhere. And I think their losses have been to their emotional lives, their social lives, as well as their academic lives. And I think we need to figure out what those losses are. More specifically, we need to do a little bit of assessing. And we need to start intervening also. I think the ARP funds that are coming to Brookline need to be put towards, some of them need to be put towards helping make students whole again after this last year. But I think also we've just tabled a lot of stuff over the past year because we've had to scramble with remote and hybrid education. And now is our time to get back to some basic matters of education quality and access. I'm really excited about, I'm hoping to join the curriculum subcommittee that Jennifer Monopoly has been doing such wonderful work on. I think the challenge of figuring out how to broaden our curriculum is one that we're ready to pick up again. I think the curriculum's gotten a little narrow. The paths to success have gotten a little narrow. I think it's important that all students have a chance to excel and have a chance to just find their love of learning in whatever subjects that appeal to them. I won't go through all my priorities with you right now, Tommy, unless you'd like me to. But I'm excited to work alongside the folks in the school committee too. I think a lot of them are really, I think they're all really strong. And I think I just admire the work they've been doing this last year too.
Stephen, do you think we're going to be back in person, full time, like rock and roll the way it used to be September 1st?
Yeah, I do, Tommy. Unless a variant comes by and we are disrupted again. But I think I served on that expert panel 3 this last year about how to support teachers using technology in remote and hybrid learning. And I think there are just a lot of lessons learned about how to make sure if we're disrupted again, when we're disrupted again, we don't get knocked offline and have to scramble as much as we did. So in the event that something does force us to go back to remote and hybrid, I think we're in better shape. What do you think, Tommy?
I hope you're right. As much as I enjoyed my son making me a sandwich at lunch once in a while, which he did, 4th grade, noon comes, he'd make himself a sandwich. He'd make me a sandwich too. Always give me a lot of extra mustard, a lot of mustard on my hot dog.
Wait. You call hot dog sandwiches? Is that an official
hot dog is a sandwich. It's meat and bread. Is it not a sandwich?
I think you just lost a chunk of the vote here.
That's the risk we take on live television. Steve Ehrenberg, congratulations on your election to the school committee. You've got 1 year. Make it count. Maybe we'll be talking about your re-election next year. Maybe you'll discover it's a lot of time you'd rather spend doing something else. Time will tell. Stephen, congratulations.
Thanks, Tommy, and just thanks to all the folks who supported me. I'm looking forward to this.
Folks, we've got just one candidate left, winner of a competitive race, and that was the race for moderator, Kate Poverman. Can we get you on satellite? You still with us? I think we're going to get her. She might already be at the high school getting ready for town meeting. I'm not sure. Let's see if we can find her on television.
Oh, hold on. I'm trying. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. The ghost of Christmas past.
Yes, very scary. So,
Kate, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I certainly have to give thanks to, appreciation to my opponent, Scott Ananian, who ran a great race, and we share a lot of the same values, which I hope to bring to town meeting. It's very nice to be here.
Well, you've got a lot of studying up to do, right? It's sort of a strange thing. So the town meeting process doesn't start in late May, right? The town meeting process starts in like January, and then the warrant comes out, I think, in March. And so Sandy Gadsby, the town's moderator, up until about 5 minutes ago, has been doing that. And now it's like he's going to Bermuda. You're hopping in the pilot seat like tomorrow, and you've got to pick up where he left off. Are you on your own on this?
Well, no, not at all. Sandy and I have been talking, and he and I will work very closely together. And I'm also hoping for a sort of Vulcan mind meld with the depth of knowledge he has, which is really incredible. He's a very impressive person, and it will be very difficult to fill his shoes. And there is a lot to learn in the next couple of weeks, and I look forward to working with him closely to do that.
You've got your copy of Town Meeting Time ready?
Memorized it, absolutely.
I doubt you have it memorized, but it is, it's a page turner. And gavel. Tell us about, big gavel, small gavel, aerodynamic, titanium.
I'll use whatever Sandy passes on to me. Tradition can be important sometimes, and that will be one of them.
In all seriousness, it's a big job, and Sandy Gadsby put in a lot of years into the town and should be thanked for it, and I thank him for it.
Absolutely.
But this is an opportunity to evolve a little bit, and so tell us about some of the things that maybe you're going to try to do new and improved, a little bit differently.
Well, I think it is possible to be more proactive in terms of reaching out to underrepresented communities that exist, especially when making appointments to the advisory committee. So, for example, when there is an opportunity to be on the advisory committee, to reach out even to the Brookline parents, which are such a huge source of talent and diversity, to let them know of opportunities to be on the advisory committee, to reach out to Bridge, the Brookline Housing Authority, to entities that haven't been proactively connected with yet, to see if there are people who they can recommend, and also people who can apply for opportunities to be on the advisory committee. I think that will be one of the ways. It is possible to increase the depth of talent and the depth of the diversity we have.
Now, I asked Stephen Ehrenberg about September going back to school. He says, we're going back. It's going to be awesome. Obviously, the May town meeting is going to be on Zoom, but we're almost certainly going to have a town meeting in November, as we have had every year as long as I can remember. You think that's going to be on Zoom? Is that going to be in the high school? What's that going to look like?
My gut reaction is that it's going to be hybrid, and that is going to be the way that things continue for a while. And there are definite benefits to that, because being able to participate on Zoom gives an advantage to people who have mobility issues, transportation issues, and childcare issues. So I think that that adds a lot of value to it. There are still actions to be taken by the government to allow that, but it is certainly something that I hope continues. However, as you mentioned the cookies earlier, that's one of the top things that people seem to like about town meetings. So that may be what gets us back into the high school auditorium more than anything else.
Well, maybe cookies is a euphemism for enjoying each other's company and seeing friends and neighbors and colleagues. I think maybe it is, but I'm a peanut butter guy. Chocolate chip, dangerous with the white shirt. Some folks like oatmeal raisin, but
I like the oatmeal raisin too. I have to admit, those are my favorites.
Kate, any last words? Anything else you want to share with us on this night?
I look forward very much to making town meeting even more inclusive, even friendlier, even more accessible than it has been. And as you made a comment at a meeting the other day, making sure that kindness and grace and acceptance and niceness are part of town meeting, and assuming that when someone says something, that they are doing so with a good intent. That is just so critical to communication and to getting along, especially in a democratic institution.
Well, on those words, Kate, go study up. You got a lot of work to do in the next couple of weeks. No doubt it's going to be a doozy of a town meeting, and I very much look forward to you shepherding us through the process. So congratulations again, Kate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
Folks, we're just about out of time. I've certainly run out of material, so now I'm just winging it, right? And I was going to talk about what Kate just brought up, and that is grace. We're emotionally charged, right? We're cranky. We care about things. National politics, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of pressure. And we all want to have a better community. We don't always agree on exactly what that looks like, but actually, we agree on an awful lot of it. And I got news for you. Even if you went down to rural Arkansas, where 80% of people are Republican, you'd agree with them too on an awful lot of it. We want to have safe communities. We want to have opportunities for our kids. We want to grow old gracefully. We want to enjoy each other's company. We agree on a lot. And certainly within Brookline, we agree on even more than that, right? We don't agree on everything, and we've got to work to make our community better. And that means we've got to disagree on things. And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't. We need to disagree on things. We need to work out how best to do things. That requires debate. That requires research and analysis. That requires channeling our good friend Mark Twain, who reminded us that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? And I say this after I've just been talking for 3 hours straight about how we all need to listen more, and the irony is not lost on me. But we do. We need to listen more, and importantly, as Kate mentioned, when we speak off the cuff, when we type things into a computer, they don't always come out the way we intended. And sometimes there are several interpretations. And it can be easy to assume the best out of the people we tend to agree with and the worst out of the people with whom we disagree on an issue. I hope we don't. I hope we give each other the benefit of the doubt, because in doing so, in showing that grace, we allow for the opportunity to work together with people who we don't agree with entirely, so that we can get to a place where not only are we better off, but a place that's robust, that's reliable, because we got there together. We had a mixed outcome in select board race. Clearly, anyone who's paying attention sees that. I think that's healthy. I think that's exciting. And I have every hope that new select board member Ashkenazi and incumbent and longtime select board member Green will work together and work with select board member Fernandez, Van Scoyac, and Hamilton toward our common goals, and that they will do so respectfully, that they will find ways to move us forward, and that they will model that behavior for the rest of us, because we all need to do the same thing. So I'm going to get off that horse. There's work to do. I look forward to doing it together. The other thing I want to say before we leave, Pat Ward served this town for many, many years as town clerk. He didn't run again. He was actually ill before COVID, so many of us haven't seen him in a long time. Pat, thank you for the work that you did. Sandy Gadsby was moderator for decades. And, you know, think of it as like the umpire of a ball game. Not a lot of credit. Nobody remembers when you did it right. Everybody remembers when they think you did it wrong. Sandy, like all of us, imperfect, had some biases, still has some biases, right? Doesn't always get it right, but Moderator Gadsby worked very hard running a tight ship, and I think that he got it right far more often than he didn't. I will say a little anecdote. I started serving in town meeting, I think, in 2006. It wasn't until I was elected to a state rep in 2018, 12 years. During that entire time period, I didn't know if he liked me or if he didn't like me. He was tough on me, and it was never clear to me if that was out of some sort of appreciation or just annoyance. I think he likes me, but I'm still not certain. So thank you, moderator Sandy Gadsby. A couple of town meeting members served for many years and either didn't run for re-election, passed away, or lost at the polls. Certainly town meeting member isn't the kind of work that town clerk or moderator is. But I think we need to take a minute and be thankful to them. Think of a few in your head. If you see one, say hello, write a note. Similarly, Nancy Heller. Nancy Heller was on the select board for 6 years. She served on the advisory committee. She served on the school committee. Nancy Heller put in decades of service to this town. Like everybody else in town politics, I didn't agree with her all the time. I didn't disagree with her all the time. I think it's okay to say, even if you disagreed with her on a particular issue or on a series of issues, it's still okay to say thank you for putting in your time to try to help the community the best you can. And that's frankly what I love about town meeting and our town form of government. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That makes it tough. But it also means we're hearing from more folks. We're giving more folks the opportunity to participate. We're giving more folks the opportunity to shape our future. We're hearing more ideas. And look, I don't actually know which body has more Harvard-educated lawyers, the United States Congress or Brookline Town Meeting. It's a smart group. It's a well-educated group. It's a hard-working group. And I will tell you, I can't wait until we get back in person, share a cookie, and enjoy that time. The last thing I want to do before we say goodnight is I want to thank Brookline Interactive Group. I've done it a couple of times tonight. I'm going to do it again. This program took hundreds of hours to put together. And big acts like no big. But it is big. It's a big deal. It's a ton of work. And we could not, in my opinion, have made it through the pandemic continuing to have a functioning government, continuing to get feedback from the public, to share information and decisions to the public, to meet the open meeting law without Brookline Interactive Group. Now, clearly, we talked about Devin earlier, Heather Hamilton brought her up, other folks on IT and other Brookline staff also played a role, and thank you to them as well. But big was critical. And big is at a time when their funding is being cut every year, and it's not the town of Brookline who's deciding to cut their funding. It's related to their source of revenue. But the town of Brookline and its budget does have the opportunity to fund more big. And big is not, this is not Wayne's World, right? Big is doing real work and important work for the community. No disrespect to Wayne and Garth. And in my view, at least, we've got to fund them. We've got to take care of them. They're taking care of us. And so I want to thank Corbin and Ann and Kathy and Ian and everyone else at Big who made tonight possible, but who also has made our government continuing to work over the past 13 or 14 months possible. And so with that, I've been up for most of the last 72 hours. I'm going to go home, go to bed, and I'm on a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow to go visit my dad. So from all of us here at Brookline Interactive Group, thanks for watching. Congratulations to all the candidates, winners, and those who didn't quite get enough votes both. And thanks for watching. Have a great night.